Chapter 11:21. The headline of the financial section of the newspaper was about the latest collaboration between the Liu Group and the Zhao Group. The collaboration between the Liu Group and the Zhao family was supposed to be with the Guan family. Your father and I agreed on this collaboration a long time ago, but you signed it with the Zhao family on your own. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Guan Rui asked fiercely. Lu Tingxiao looked at the man indifferently and said, Chairman Guan, you don't seem to understand who's in charge of the Liu family now. You. Guan Rui was speechless. The capital was Lu Tingxiao's territory. They had to go through the Liu family if they wanted to gain a foothold, but Lu Tingxiao was in charge of the Liu family now. Guan Rui had no choice but to suppress his anger and soften his attitude. He said earnestly, Tingxiao, I don't know if that woman whispered some pillow talk into your ears, but the truth is right in front of your eyes. What happened last time was very clear. It was indeed an accident caused by an argument. Not only that, Rong has already paid the price with her life. Isn't that enough? As soon as Guan Rui finished speaking, a dark glint flashed across Lu Tingxiao's cold eyes. Not long ago, he had received a call from the police station saying that Chao Lirong had died of a sudden heart attack. Guan Rui was lucky. He had already sent people to keep an eye on her 24/7, so they couldn't do anything. However, Chao Lirong had probably died of a sudden heart attack in the detention center because she was under too much pressure. There was no evidence now, so it didn't matter what the Guan family said. That was why Guan Rui had come to question him fearlessly. What premeditated murder? That's complete nonsense. There's no evidence at all. You want to destroy the friendship between our Liu and Guan families with such a baseless accusation? Tingxiao, you better think this through. Guan Rui's tone contained a hint of threat. Lu Tingxiao looked at the man in front of him expressionlessly and said unhurriedly, Who said I need evidence? Who said I need evidence to close the collaboration? Do I need a reason to stand up for my wife? Guan Rui was really angry this time. You can't tell right from wrong for a woman. You've already been bewitched by her. You'll regret it one day. Guan Rui came in a rage and was even more furious when he left. After leaving the Liu Group building, he immediately went to the Liu family mansion. However, he was told that Lu Chongshan was at the Platinum Palace when he arrived. Thus, Guan Rui had no choice but to go to the palace. When Guan Rui arrived, Xiaobao was learning painting from Song Jin in the little red house at the back. Lu Chongshan was also observing from the side. Occasionally, he would exchange a few words with Song Jin about his insights or interesting things about Xiaobao. The atmosphere was unusually harmonious. When Lu Chongshan heard the servant say that Guan Rui actually found his way here, he was a little unhappy because his time with his grandson was interrupted. Old song, I have a guest. I have to take my leave. Lu Chongshan had no choice but to greet Song Jin before heading to the living room to receive Guan Rui. Guan family mansion. What brought you here? You asked. Lu family and Guan family mansion. Chongshan family and Lu Guan, Chongshan family Lu Yu, Lu. I Lu upon hearing this, Lu Chongshan hurriedly said, Sigh, look at my memory. I was practicing painting with my grandson just now, so I switched off my phone. I'm really sorry. Chapter 11:22. Guan Rui was so angry that he didn't bother to chat with Lu Chongshan anymore. He went straight to the point. Brother Lu, I'm not going to tell you anything else. I'm sure you know why I'm here today. I made a deal with you when I first came back to China. Half a month ago, I confirmed with you that there would be no problem. But now you suddenly went back on your word and gave it to the Zhao family. Isn't this a slap in the face to the Guan family? Lu Chongshan knew that he was here for this matter. He gestured for him to sit down and said helplessly, Brother Guan, our families have been friends for so many years. I'll do my best to help you when you come back to China. I'm also happy to cooperate with the Guan family. It wasn't just me. Tingxiao also felt the same way. At that time, he personally agreed to it. But, as you know, after what happened a few days ago, hearing this, Guan Rui's face immediately filled with anger. That matter has already been investigated. It was an accident. It was Rong's fault for speaking rudely, but it's normal for girls to quarrel. She even lost her life. But that woman is still so unforgiving. She's too vicious. I don't know how that woman instigated trouble in Tingxiao's ears. It's such a big case, but she changed her mind just like that. Chongshan, Tingxiao is still young, and he is easily influenced by his emotions. He is about to be bewitched by that woman. Don't tell me you're going to let him do whatever he wants? Lu Chongshan's face darkened. He could scold and question his son, but it wasn't up to an outsider to say these things. Even if it was Guan Rui. What was more, he saw it with his own eyes from the beginning. He saw Ning Shi being pushed into the water by the relative of the Guan family, and he saw the rude provocation of the woman in the surveillance video. Ning Shi didn't even say a word until she was pushed into the emergency room and given a notice of critical illness. He heard Xiaobao's shrill cries with his own ears. He still had a lingering fear in his heart. Although Chao Lirong had died later, she had died of a heart attack. It wasn't like the Lu family had forced her to her death. However, Guan Rui's tone made it sound like the Lu family was the one who had caused her death. Furthermore, there was no evidence now. No one knew whether or not the Guan family had played any tricks in this matter. Even he had his suspicions, let alone Tingxiao. Therefore, although he felt that Tingxiao's decision to swap out the project without hesitation was a little hasty, he could understand his son's decision. No man could remain indifferent to such a thing. No matter how much he disliked Ning Shi, he could not deny that this matter had nothing to do with Ning Shi from beginning to end. On the contrary, it was thanks to her that Xiaobao was able to speak. At the thought of this, Lu Chongshan said, "Brother Guan, Tingxiao's sudden change of business partners was indeed a little hasty, but it was understandable. After all, the Guan family was in the wrong. If it wasn't for Chao Lirong's provocation and assault, things wouldn't have developed to this stage. Based on Tingxiao's personality, he's only changing his business partner because of our many years of friendship." Chapter 11:23. When Guan Rui heard this, his anger was stuck in his throat. However, he knew that there was no benefit in going head-on with Lu Chongshan at this time. Hence, he said in a gloomy tone, "Brother Lu, we are indeed in the wrong in this matter, but Tingxiao's actions have hurt the relationship between our two families. After all, we will be a family in the future. Because of that woman, Xiao has already suffered a lot. Xiao hasn't even married into our family yet, but he already has a woman outside. He even slapped our family's face because of that woman. Isn't this disappointing?" Hearing this, Lu Chongshan's expression became serious. After pondering for a while, he let out a sigh and said, "Brother Guan, Rui and I have liked Xiao since she was young, and have treated her like our own daughter. If it's possible, I naturally hope that our families can become a family. But the Lu family won't be so selfish as to force Xiao to wait for Tingxiao. You've seen Tingxiao's situation, and there's nothing Rui and I can do. So, we don't dare to delay Xiao's future. Let's just let the children take their own course." Lu Chongshan naturally hoped that they could have a marriage alliance with the Guan family. But looking at the current situation, it wasn't just Tingxiao, even Xiaobao was getting closer to that woman. If Tingxiao didn't compromise in a year or two, would the Guan family have to wait for a year or two? They might end up becoming enemies instead of becoming in-laws. So, it was better to make things clear. Guan Rui's expression changed when he heard this. However, he could not refute Lu Chongshan's words. After all, the two families were only talking about it in private. They did not even have a marriage contract. Even if it was spread to the outside world, it would be unjustifiable and unjustifiable. He had been too impatient this time, so much so that Lu Chongshan had backed off because he had too many misgivings. Guan Rui gritted his teeth and said hurriedly, "Brother Lu, listen to what you're saying. I believe that the two children still have feelings for each other. It's just a small misunderstanding. If we don't want to sign the agreement, then let's just treat it as our apology for what happened last time. It's my fault too. I shouldn't have brought a relative I'm not familiar with to such an occasion. Brother Guan, you're being too serious. Since it's a misunderstanding, it's fine as long as we explain it clearly. The relationship between our two families will definitely not be affected by the matters of our children." As Lu Chongshan was speaking, his sleeve was suddenly pulled by someone from behind. Tilting his head, he saw his precious grandson tugging at his sleeve with his little hand while holding a painting in his other hand. Lu Chongshan's face was immediately filled with affection. "Xiaobao is done. Do you want to show it to Grandpa?" Xiaobao nodded and looked at Guan Rui. He probably remembered that he had seen this man at the birthday banquet. He was Guan Jichen's grandfather, and his little face immediately tensed up. Lu Chongshan naturally noticed the change in his precious son's expression. He hurriedly responded with a few words and sent Guan Rui out. After sending Guan Rui off, Lu Chongshan immediately returned to the living room to continue accompanying his precious grandson. Right now, nothing was more important than coaxing his precious grandson to call him Grandpa. Lu Chongshan looked at Xiaobao's painting as he praised it lovingly. Lu Chongshan couldn't help but fall into deep thought as he watched the child's lively expression and lively eyes gradually recover. The reason why he was so against Tingxiao being with that woman wasn't because he was stubborn and unreasonable, but because once bitten, twice shy. Chapter 11:24. That night, Yin Ruri came over as well. She was carrying bags of various sizes, all of which were bought for Xiaobao. In the end, as soon as he entered the door, he saw Lu Chongshan, who had disappeared for a whole day, was actually here. Furthermore, he was following Xiaobao around, not taking a single step away from him. He was helping Xiaobao pass his brush to him and complimenting him in different ways. Yin Rui's expression darkened, and she said sternly, "Lu Chongshan, you lied to me that you want to play golf with your friends, but you ended up here instead." Seeing his wife, Lu Chongshan coughed unnaturally. "Can I come? Does my grandson need to report to you? Since you're just here to see your grandson, why did you hide it from me?" Yin Rui looked as if she had seen through him. Lu Chongshan immediately fell silent with an embarrassed look on his face. Yin Rui pointed at him and glared at him. Her expression was both angry and jealous. "You've been here for the entire day, but has Xiaobao called you Grandpa yet?" Just then, Lu Jingli ran out from behind her. As he munched on an apple, he laughed and said, Mom, don't worry. My dad's unfair competition didn't succeed. I've asked the maid at home. Xiaobao didn't speak at all today, let alone call me Grandpa." Lu Chongshan was so angry that he glared at him. "Rascal! So what if he didn't call me Grandpa? Xiaobao got along with me so well today." When Yin Rui heard that Xiaobao didn't call him Grandpa at all, she was instantly elated. Fortunately, the old man didn't go before her. Otherwise, she didn't know how to show off in front of her. As for Lu Jingli, he was even more delighted. "Ha ha ha ha, I knew it, Xiaobao really loves me." These days, Yin Ruri and Lu Chongshan were competing to make their presence known in front of Xiaobao, but none of them succeeded. He was still the record holder. Ha ha ha. As Lu Jingli was gloating, the door behind him opened. Lu Tingxiao returned with Ning Shi beside him. The two of them were carrying bags of vegetables and meat. Seeing that Yin Rui and Lu Chongshan were there, Ning Shi was stunned. She whispered into Lu Tingxiao's ear, "Why didn't you tell me that your parents are here too?" Lu Tingxiao looked innocent. "I just found out too." Roar. Sister-in-law smash. "Are you going to cook by yourself? Isn't that right? No wonder I heard a magpie calling at my bedside early this morning. Come in, come in." Lu Jingli immediately rushed over and took the bag from Ning Shi's hand. Then he shouted upstairs as if he was afraid that Ning Shi would run away. "Smash the bag. Your mother is here." Thud, thud, thud. Like a summoned beast, Little Bun ran downstairs as soon as he heard the word mommy. He hugged his mommy's calf, raised his head, stood on his tiptoes, and eagerly opened his short arms. Mommy hug, his little face had an aggrieved expression that said, "I've been waiting for mommy to hug me for a whole day." Hearing the 3 words babies that almost melted people's hearts, Ning Shi couldn't care less about who was here. She didn't even have eyes for Lu Tingxiao, only for Little Bun. She stuffed the things in her hands into Lu Tingxiao's hands, and then used her free hand to carry Little Bun. Her tone was so gentle that even Lu Tingxiao was jealous. "Baby, what did you do today?" "Drawl, what else?" "Right. Did you obediently practice on time?" "Yes, obediently." "Baby is amazing." Chapter 11:25. Yin Ruri and Lu Chongshan exchanged a glance with each other as they watched Xiaobao and Ning Shi chatting freely with each other. They both sighed with emotion. They later asked Qin Mufeng and learned that Xiaobao had basically recovered. However, most of the time, he probably only talked to people who were close to him and whom he trusted and felt safe with. Sigh. Unfortunately, for Xiaobao's safety, he had gone too far. As a result, his only precious grandson had left him. Yin Rui walked over and asked, Ting Xiao, are you guys going to cook tonight? Xiaobao's homework. He's going to finish dinner with Mom and Dad, Lu Tingxiao replied. Yin Rui nodded. I see. This school assignment was quite meaningful. Your dad and I won't disturb you, right? Surprise flashed across Lu Tingxiao's eyes when he heard this. Even Ningxi was surprised. She had originally planned to accompany Xiaobao to cook today. She hadn't expected Yin Rui and Lu Chongshan to be there too. She had already prepared to rush over tomorrow to help Xiaobao with his homework. Unexpectedly, not only did Yin Rui not complain about her coming, but her attitude was also unprecedentedly gentle. Lu Tingxiao and Ningxi exchanged a look and said, It's fine. You guys watch TV. Dinner will be ready soon. Okay. You guys go ahead. Call me if you need any help, Yin Rui said hurriedly. Lu Chongshan didn't object from the beginning to the end. Lu Tingxiao said, Okay. Ningxi nodded at the two elders. She then carried Xiaobao into the kitchen with Lu Tingxiao. After the family of three entered the kitchen, Lu Jingli rushed back to his yard to pick vegetables. His own vegetables were the best. Yin Rui and Lu Jingli sat on the sofa in the living room. They looked at the three people in the kitchen with complicated expressions. From time to time, Xiaobao's childish voice could be heard from the kitchen. Once upon a time, this was a scene that they had dreamed of. Ever since something happened to Xiaobao, the entire Lu clan had been shrouded in a dark cloud. They had never thought that they would be able to see Xiaobao recover in their lifetime. Chongshan, perhaps it's time for us to let go of our prejudices regarding what happened back then. We can't possibly overturn a group of people just because of a single person. We've been watching this girl for a long time. She's indeed very kind to our Xiaobao. Yin Rui sighed. Lu Chongshan pondered for a long time. It was rare that he did not fly into a rage the moment Yin Rui mentioned this matter. He muttered, Let's wait and see. After all, time reveals a person's heart. In the kitchen, under the command of Ning Shi and the help of Big Steamed Bun and Little Steamed Bun, a sumptuous dinner was soon prepared. Ning Shi looked at the last bowl of soup on the stove, lowered her head and said to Little Bun, Xiaobao, dinner is almost ready. Go tell Grandpa and Grandma that dinner is ready. Got it, Mom. Xiaobao nodded obediently and ran toward the living room. When Xiaobao went to call for them, Yin Rui and Lu Chongshan were talking and didn't notice Xiaobao coming over. In the end, halfway through their conversation, they suddenly heard a childish voice. Grandpa. Chapter 11:26. Lu Chongshan's mouth fell open, and he turned his head in disbelief. His body trembled as he stared at the little boy standing in front of him, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Did Xiaobao say something just now? Grandpa, it's dinner time, Xiaobao said, and turned to Yin Rui. Grandma, it's dinner time. The words Grandpa and Grandma were so sudden that Yin Rui almost lost control. She turned around hurriedly and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Then, she said hurriedly, Okay. Grandpa and Grandma heard you. Grandpa and Grandma are coming. Xiaobao left in satisfaction. Lu Chongshan and Yin Rui looked at each other. Their eyes were moist. Yin Rui wiped her tears and glared at Lu Chongshan. Xiaobao called you first. Now you're happy. What are you talking about? We called each other at the same time. How can you be so calculative over such a small matter? You're like a child, Lu Chongshan said, but he couldn't hide his joy and satisfaction. Seeing him like this, Yin Rui couldn't help cursing him for a long time. Although he said he didn't care, he was actually overjoyed. How dare he call her a child when he was so childish? The atmosphere at dinner was unusually good, and the whole family was in high spirits. Yin Rui and Lu Chongshan were smiling the whole time, and their attitude towards Ning Shi was also much more polite. After dinner, when Ning Shi was about to leave, Yin Rui said, It's so late. Why don't you stay here? Ning Shi was indeed surprised by Lu Chongshan and Yin Rui's attitude tonight. She turned them down politely. Thank you, Mrs. Lu. but I'm going to City Q on a business trip tomorrow morning, and I have some documents to sort out when I get back. I see. Yin Rui nodded. Are you busy with the clothing company? Ningxi nodded.
Yes.
I heard that Xian Yin opened your agency store, and it's doing well? Ningxi gave a wry smile. At first, it was good, and her store had the highest turnover on the books. But later I found out that she used the method of small profits but quick turnover and super low discounts to increase the turnover. She even changed the professional shopping guide I arranged for her. Although Yin Rui wasn't a professional, she had been influenced by Lu Chongshan for so many years and immediately noticed the problem. This girl, how could a luxury brand do this? What happened next? I've already looked for her once and asked her to strictly follow the rules and regulations. It's just that she gave too many discounts previously. It'll probably take some time for her to reverse the situation. However, as long as she doesn't mess around, she'll definitely gradually improve. Listening to Ningxi's methodical analysis of the market and brands, Yin Rui nodded and couldn't help but say a few more words to her. After that incident, Chongshan had specially investigated Ningxi's company. She had founded it all by herself and had done everything herself. From a small studio to today's scale, Tingxiao had never interfered at all during this period. Later, Yin Rui and Ningxi chatted for a while. In the end, Lu Tingxiao urged them to send Ningxi to the door. Mom! Little Bun grabbed onto Ningxi's trousers and raised his head with a face full of reluctance. He looked like he wanted nothing more than to become an accessory to Ningxi's leg and follow her home. Chapter 11:27. Okay. Ningxi squatted down and rubbed the little bun's head. Mom, when will you come back? Well, I'm not sure yet. I'll call you and video call you. Hug me. Ningxi hugged him for a while. Kiss me. Ningxi kissed the little guy's forehead again. The mother and son were affectionate for a long time before Ningxi finally left, looking back 3 times at every step. Behind him, Lu Jingli watched as the little bun behaved like a little white rabbit in front of Ningxi, which really made him very cute. Therefore, as soon as Ningxi left, Lu Jingli went up to the little bun and said lovingly, Xiaobao, don't be sad. Second uncle will give you a hug and a kiss. Come to my arms. Little Baozi retracted his reluctant gaze from the direction Mama left in, then turned to Lu Jingli with a serious expression and said word by word, Second uncle, I am my mother's baby. If you like, you can give birth to one yourself. Lu Jingli. Poof, poof, poof. Lu Jingli's chest was hit by several arrows. He almost vomited blood. Brother. Hey, can you control your son? Lu Tingxiao rubbed his son's head, expressing that he was indeed his own son. Yes, Xiaobao is mommy's baby. Yin Rui said, Xiaobao is right. If you like children, find a wife and have them yourself. Don't look at other people's babies. Lu Chongshan snorted in disdain. He has to be able to do that. Lu Jingli, who had been stabbed by his nephew, brother, and parents, was speechless. He would never show off in front of his brother that Xiaobao called him second uncle again. The next morning, after a night of recuperation, Ningxi and Han Momo headed straight to City Q. Province H was close to the capital, and City Q was the capital of Province H. There were 2 biggest shopping malls. Xiao Weilon had already contacted one of them. Ningxi went there to discuss the details. As the boss, she didn't have to do everything herself, but she had to know how to do it. So she had to go through the learning process. On the plane, Han Momo was sorting out the information of all of Gong Shang's design works, while Ningxi was carefully looking at the agency plan. If there were any omissions or flaws, there was still time to make amendments. Ningxi didn't feel any pressure to be the agent of Zhe Ling's brand in other provinces. This was just the first step. In the future, Zhe Ling would spread out in every city until it stepped onto the international stage. Of course, the most important thing now was to be steady and sure, so that Zhe Ling could successfully open up the domestic market. Q City in Province H wasn't far from the capital. They arrived at their destination in just over an hour. After leaving the airport, the 2 of them checked into the hotel they had booked. After lunch, Han Momo followed Ningxi to the largest shopping mall in City Q, New Century Shopping Mall. There were 2 famous shopping malls in City Q. One was New Century, and the other was Huixing Shopping Mall. In the past few years, Huixing Mall had steadily surpassed New Era in terms of customer flow and market share. In recent years, due to the development of the city, the relocation of the government, schools, and even the main city area brought more people to New Century shopping centers. And New Century shopping centers seized the opportunity. After seeing the signs, they immediately increased investment and publicity and became the largest shopping mall. In City Q, there were two famous shopping malls, New Century Shopping Mall and Huixing Shopping Mall. Chapter 11:28. In the past few years, Huixing Shopping Mall had surpassed New Century Shopping Mall in terms of both traffic and market share. In recent years, due to the development of the city, the relocation of the government, schools, and even the main city area brought more traffic to New Century Shopping Mall. The New Century Mall also seized the opportunity. After seeing the signs, it immediately increased its investment and publicity efforts, becoming the largest mall in a single leap. The agent that Zhe Ling had gotten this time was the most powerful clothing company in New Century Mall. The boss was called Deng Quan, and he was the agent of 8 branded stores. All of the low-end and mid-range brands were well-managed, but they lacked high-end brands like Zhe Ling. During this time, Zhe Ling's reputation was rising. Coupled with the definition of a high-end brand, the agent discount was attractive enough, which made Deng Quan interested in joining. About half an hour later, Ningxi arrived at New Century Shopping Mall with Han Momo. After walking around the mall, she found that New Century Shopping Mall was really big and had a lot of traffic. In addition, the agent, Deng Quan, was also very capable. If Zhe Ling could be opened by Deng Quan in this area, it would be very beneficial to the development of Zhe Ling in H province. After entering the mall, Ningxi called Deng Quan and told him that she and her assistant had arrived. Half an hour later, a middle-aged fat man in a suit and leather shoes walked toward Ningxi with a female secretary. "Hello, Miss Ning. I'm Deng Quan." Deng Quan smiled and shook hands with Ningxi. Then, Deng Quan led Ningxi into the office of the mall. In the office, after chatting for a while, Ningxi gave the agent plan to Deng Quan and smiled. "Mr. Deng, the details of Zhe Ling's agent are all written in this plan. You can take a look first." Hearing that, Deng Quan nodded and opened the plan seriously. "Here are the latest samples of Zhe Ling, Mr. Deng. You can also take a look." Han Momo stepped forward and handed a delicately packaged clothing to Deng Quan. "Well, not bad, very good." Deng Quan looked over it and closed it. With a satisfied smile, he said, "Miss Ning, I've been to Ziling's clothing store twice. I'm very confident in the quality and style of Ziling's clothing. I'm also quite satisfied with other aspects. But as for the price, could you give me a discount?" Hearing that, Ningxi said seriously, "Boss Deng, you also know that you get what you pay for. We also attach great importance to Boss Deng's joining, so we have increased the discount to the limit." "Hee, Miss Ning, we are all businessmen. We are all here to make money, right?" Deng Quan smiled faintly, with an expression that said, "You understand." "Mr. Deng, it's like this." Ningxi paused for a moment and then said, "If I tell Mr. Deng today that the price can still be discounted, then Zhe Ling's loss will definitely be recovered from the material. This is not a good thing for the consumers or Mr. Deng. Moreover, I believe Mr. Deng has seen Zhe Ling's reputation and quality. A capable businessman like Mr. Deng should also know Zhe Ling's potential." Deng Quan's eyes flashed. He saw that the founder of Zhe Ling was young and wanted to lower the price. He didn't expect this little girl to be so experienced, and what she said was very reasonable. Zhe Ling's brand effect and potential were what he valued the most. Chapter 11:29. Hee, Miss Ning, then there's no problem. Let's go back to the capital tomorrow. Take me to your Ziling headquarters for a tour, and we can sign the contract. What do you think?" Deng Quan said with a smile. "Of course, you are welcome. Boss Deng, that's a deal. If you have any questions later, you can contact me at any time." Hearing that, Ningxi looked slightly relaxed. After chatting with Deng Quan for a while, Ningxi left with Han Momo. Before leaving, she made an appointment with Deng Quan to visit the headquarters in the capital and sign the contract. After leaving New Century Mall, Ningxi and Han Momo returned to the hotel. However, Not long after Ningxi left, a man strode into Deng Quan's office. "Mr. Deng, please allow me to briefly introduce myself. I am the marketing director of History, Qin Zifan." The man stared at Deng Quan. History? Deng Quan was surprised. He naturally knew about history. History became famous earlier than Zailing, but coincidentally, History and Zailing's brand positioning and audience were the same. These two high-end brands were currently competing with each other. Qin Zifan, if I remember correctly, you should be the former marketing director of SF, right? Deng Quan looked at Qin Zifan and had some impression of him. Qin Zifan nodded and did not deny it. "Haha, Mr. Qin, I'm afraid you're late. I've already made a verbal agreement with Zailing to represent their brand. I'm afraid you've made a wasted trip." A shrewd businessman like Deng Quan could naturally guess the purpose of Qin Zifan's visit. "Oh, a verbal agreement." Qin Zifan smiled nonchalantly. "Boss Deng is a businessman, so I won't beat around the bush. We, History, are also very interested in New Century and Boss Deng. This proposal was written by me myself. Boss Deng, why don't you take a look before making your decision?" Deng Quan patiently took Qin Zifan's proposal and carefully looked at it for a moment. 2 points lower than Zailing? Deng Quan was a little surprised. This discount was more attractive than Zailing's. "Mr. Deng, if you are the agent of our brand, we will directly deploy people from the headquarters, from the brand management of the stores to the shopping guides. Most importantly, the publicity fees will also be paid by History." Qin Zifan threw out a very tempting price tag. Deng Quan pondered for a long time. Finally, he looked at Qin Zifan and said, "Haha, we're all friends. Let's have dinner together tonight, and we can talk about it slowly." After leaving Deng Quan's office, Qin Zifan called Ning Shuilua. "Boss, it's done. I've said it before, Zailing's marketing director is just an ordinary guy." Qin Zifan hung up the phone and left with an inexplicable smile on his face. The next day, in the hotel room, Ningxi suddenly received a message from Deng Quan, saying that they had thought about it for a long time and had given up on representing Zailing. They had chosen History. The specific reason was that the conditions offered by History were more attractive. How could it be like this? Mr. Deng is too untrustworthy. Han Momo was furious. "We were too careless this time. In any case, let's go and confirm with them first." Ningxi's expression was slightly serious. She did not say much and went straight to New Century Mall with Han Momo. When they arrived, they found that Deng Quan had made up his mind this time. He only invited Ningxi for lunch and did not mention anything about representing Zailing. Chapter 11:30. Later, Ningxi heard that History's marketing director, Qin Zifan, came to find Deng Quan right after she left. After Qin Zifan came, Deng Quan immediately gave up Zailing and chose History. It was easy to figure out what had happened. After leaving New Century, Ningxi immediately called Xiao Weilan and asked her to come to Q City immediately. History's marketing director must have some connections. In this situation, she could only rely on Xiao Weilan. She didn't know if she had a way. At noon that day, Xiao Weilan arrived at Q City and checked into the hotel Ningxi had booked. Ningxi had told Xiao Weilan the whole story in the previous communication. When they met, she repeated it. "Give up New Century." Xiao Weilan said her idea directly. "Give up? Are you sure?" Ningxi couldn't believe it. Xiao Weilan would say that?
Yes.
Xiao Weilan said seriously. History's marketing director came prepared. He is fighting a price war. If we keep playing with him, we won't win. Even if we win, we will lose. Director Xiao, what do you mean? Han Momo didn't understand. It's very simple. History is fighting a price war. The agency price given to New Era is the lowest possible price. It can be said that History itself is not making much profit. If we want to snatch it back, we have to lower the price even more. This is not a good thing for Zailing, and it may even affect the quality of the clothing. For the sake of New Era, there is no need to do this, Xiao Weilan said lightly. Director Xiao, you mean that if we take it back, it's putting the cart before the horse. It's not good for Zailing, and they have achieved their goal. If we don't take it back, New Century must be given to History. Although their profit is small, it's good for the promotion of History's brand. Ningxi was surprised.
Yes.
Xiao Weilon nodded. Ningxi's understanding was correct. Hearing that, Ningxi was shocked. Who exactly was the marketing director of history? This was a sure-win situation. If Zhe Ling wanted to take back New Century, she had to pay a big price. If she didn't take it back, she would give it to history. But no matter what, Zhe Ling would lose. Zhe Ling was stuck in the middle. She couldn't move forward or retreat. He's definitely going to lose? Ningxi was unhappy that her first business in another province was snatched away by history before she could make any progress. Who said I lost? The game has only just begun. Xiao Weilon's face, which had always been cold and serious, had a bright and lively expression that only appeared when talking about the field she was good at. But Director Xiao, we can't snatch it or not. What should we do? Han Momo looked puzzled. Not to mention Han Momo, even Ningxi didn't know what Xiao Weilon was thinking. Other than New Era, we have another suitable choice. New Era's archenemy, Huixing, Xiao Weilon said. Huixing Mall. Hearing Xiao Weilon mention Huixing, Ningxi was lost in thought. In recent years, although New Century has been suppressing Huixing, it doesn't mean that Huixing is weak. On the contrary, Huixing is very strong, especially in the high-end chain brand. Huixing is doing very well, and the number of high-end customers is also very considerable, Xiao Weilon said with a smile. Director Xiao, do you mean that we should transfer to Huixing? Ningxi roughly understood what Xiao Weilon meant. Chapter 11:31. Actually, I've already been talking to Huixing. Huixing has the intention to cooperate with Zhe Ling, Xiao Weilon said. Then why did you ask me to go to New Century to find Deng Quan? Ningxi found it increasingly difficult to see through this woman's thoughts. Boss, if you had taken Han Momo to Huixing first, wouldn't we have to abandon Huixing and go to New Century now? Xiao Weilon's words were shocking. Now, both Han Momo and Ningxi were confused. According to Xiao Weilon, Director Xiao had already made up her mind that Zhe Ling's first target was Huixing Mall, not New Century. In that case, she and Han Momo were both kept in the dark and Xiao Weilon had used them. Ningxi was speechless. She even fooled her own boss. Deduct his salary. She had to deduct his salary. As if seeing through Ningxi's resentment, Xiao Weilon chuckled and said, Boss, it's not what you think. The best plan is to take both Huixing and New Century. But since history is interested, we can give New Century to them. It's not a big deal. Ningxi's eyes sparkled as she listened. At the same time, she was moved. If what happened before was just a small test, then now, Xiao Weilon was completely starting to fight for Zhe Ling. Director Xiao, you're really something. If the boss and I had gone to Huixing earlier, and history had started a price war and occupied Huixing, we would have had no choice but to give it up. But now, history has chosen New Era, and they're making us lose for sure. They're practically taking it for nothing. Doesn't this mean that from the moment history's people stepped into Province H, they had already lost? Han Momo admired Xiao Weilon from the bottom of her heart. There was only worship in her eyes. There was no longer any rejection or dissatisfaction. History had occupied New Century with almost zero profit. They must be feeling happy now. Little did they know, they had already lost. If it weren't for Xiao Weilon's clever calculation, even if history entered New Century, their profits would be countless times higher than now. And they wouldn't have had to spend a lot of money to give Deng Quan those tempting benefits. Director Xiao, how do you know that the people of history will definitely come to compete with us? Han Momo still didn't quite understand. Could Xiao Weilon predict it? Xiao Weilon said calmly, the current marketing director of history is called Qin Zifan. He used to work in San Francisco. During his tenure, he used various means to defeat many strong competitors for San Francisco. History is now our biggest competitor. Qin Zifan has just taken office, so he must want to achieve something. What if Qin Zifan doesn't come? Han Momo asked again. Xiao Weilon stared at Han Momo as if she was a fool. If he doesn't come to rob us, New Century and Huixing will belong to us. Brilliant, truly brilliant. Now, I finally know what it means to be cunning and far-sighted. Oh, I think I need to make up for Mr. Qin's meal. Ningxi chuckled. Qin Zifan did the first step, but Xiao Weilan did the 15th. She was ahead of him every step of the way. It was easy to see who was better. Xiao Weilan didn't attach much importance to New Century. Most of the clothing brands in New Century had been contracted by Dengquan, which meant that in the past, New Century had no high-end brands for sale, which meant that it had no market share. But Huixing had been operating high-end clothing brands for many years. It was almost the first batch in Province H, so Huixing had a large number of high-end customers. Chapter 1132. Zailing's definition was very clear. It was a high-end luxury brand. New Era's customer traffic was indeed a notch higher than Huixing's, but that traffic was clearly not Zailing's target customer base. Huixing, on the other hand, had many high-end customers. 2 days later, Ning Shi and Xiao Weilan finally signed the agency contract after a round of discussion. This agent was more powerful than Deng Quan of New Century and was one of the shareholders of Huixing. These days, Xiao Weilan and Ning Shi traveled back and forth between the capital and Province H to help with the opening of Zailing, which left a good impression on the shareholder of Huixing. To Ning Shi's surprise, she ran into an old acquaintance at Huixing on the day before the opening. Ming Fangfang. What surprised her even more was not that she had met Ming Fangfang in City Q, but that there was a man by Ming Fangfang's side. The man was tall, handsome, and looked very young. At this moment, he was carrying big and small bags and holding an ice cream in his hand. He was attentively asking about her well-being. "Miss Ning, long time no see. I didn't expect to meet you here. I haven't had the chance to thank you for last time. Shall we have a meal together?" Ming Fangfang looked at her and offered an invitation. Different from the hysterical and haggard look before, Ming Fangfang was exuding a woman's gentleness and her complexion was very good. It seemed that she had been doing well recently. "This is..." The man looked at Ning Shi and asked. "Ning Shi, I've mentioned her to you. So you're Ning Shi?" The man suddenly looked kind. "Then I should treat you. Miss Ning, are you free?" Ning Shi recovered from her surprise and answered readily, "Sure. Of course it's good to have someone treating." In a private restaurant nearby, the man knew that it was inconvenient for them to talk in his presence, so he didn't disturb them and left after seeing them off. "Call me when you're done. I'll pick you up." Ming Fangfang said, "Okay." After the man left, Ming Fangfang leaned back in the chair and glanced at Ning Shi. "Are you filming recently?" she asked casually. "I've finished filming. If everything goes well, it'll be released soon," Ning Shi answered. "Which director?" "Shin Mian." "What a coincidence. My first movie was with director Shin." Ming Fangfang couldn't help but sigh. Ming Fangfang played the female lead in Shan Mian's second drama, Love in the Future. That movie was still an unsurpassable classic. At the same time, it established Ming Fangfang's status in the entertainment industry. It was a pity that Ming Fangfang was the daughter of a wealthy family. She had only entered the entertainment industry for fun. Later, she got married after just one show. However, even though she had retired from the industry, her influence was still there. That was why so many people paid attention to Hu Hongda's affair. After exchanging greetings, Ming Fangfang looked at Ning Shi and asked, "Don't you have any questions?" Ning Shi was curious just now, but it was inappropriate for her to ask. Since Ming Fangfang brought it up, she asked, "Ahem. Senior, that man is?" "My husband," Ming Fangfang answered. Ming Fangfang felt it was good to be addressed as Senior Ning Shi. Ning Shi had wanted to ask if she and Hu Hongda had divorced, but now it seemed that there was no need to ask. Not only had they divorced, but they had also remarried quickly. Chapter 1133. No wonder she appeared in City Q. She had married here. Ning Shi gave her a thumbs up. "Cool." Ming Fangfang was amused by her reaction. "Really? Of course. To be honest, I was worried that you would soften up again. I can tell that you really love Hu Hongda. After all, you even forgave him after knowing that he had an affair. But luckily, a goddess is a goddess. Decisive in killing." Ning Shi clasped her hands together. Ming Fangfang smiled bitterly. "I'm not as straightforward as you say. I'm just too indecisive. That's why I've dragged it on for so many years." If Fangya hadn't come to me and let me see their true colors, I might have made the same mistake again. Fangya came to me. She could almost imagine what had happened then. Although I also think that you should get a divorce. But wouldn't it be too easy for Fangya? Fang sneered. Looks like you haven't been watching the news recently. She blinked and spread out her hands. Are you talking about the financial news? I only watch the entertainment section. Hu Hongda is bankrupt. Fang said. Bankrupt? Then Fangya. Although she was a little surprised, it was also within her expectations. At that time, New Century Real Estate was already on the verge of death because of Lu Tingxiao. They even forced Fang to leave, so naturally, there was only death left for them. What do you think? Fang glanced at her. She raised an eyebrow. Did she abort the child and leave? How could Fangya still be with Hu Hongda when he was bankrupt? The two of them had a good plan. They thought that Fang would compromise and save the company. At that time, they would continue to collude with each other and enjoy wealth and glory. Who knew that Fang would not do as they wished this time? The two of them ended up with nothing in the end. After the company went bankrupt and Fangya aborted the child, Hu Hongda came to me immediately. She looked worried. With his personality, he would definitely pester you and not agree to the divorce, right? You guessed it. Then how did you get rid of him? What else can I do to deal with such a person? My family got someone to beat him up, and he immediately became well-behaved. Otherwise, how could I still reason with him? She showed a happy expression. It seemed that Fang had completely let go of the past. Your current one seems to be very nice to you? Speaking of the man just now, Fang's originally cold expression immediately softened, and he treats me very well indeed. He has liked me for many years, but I have never considered him because he is younger than me by a whole 5 years. At that time, I thought he was young and didn't believe that he was serious. I also thought that a rich second generation like him couldn't be relied on. I didn't expect that he would wait for me for so many years. After knowing that I was divorced, he immediately came to find me. At first, I couldn't accept him because of my inferiority complex, and his family would never allow a divorced woman who was so much older than him to marry into their family. She frowned. This was indeed a bit troublesome. And then, as Fang spoke, her expression became even gentler. At that time, I told him that it was difficult for me to conceive and that I might not be able to have a child for the rest of my life. I wanted him to back off. In the end, he took a hospital diagnosis and told me that he was also infertile. Chapter 1134. Ningxi was dumbfounded. Really? Is he really infertile? Fang touched her belly. I'm pregnant. What do you think? Ningxi was pleasantly surprised. Damn. Really? You're pregnant? Congratulations. Needless to say, that man was obviously lying to her. Fang looked at the girl's heartfelt joy and was moved. Thank you. At the mention of this, Fang was still a little shocked. When I found out that I was pregnant, I was shocked. I thought it was Hu Hongda's, so I was going to secretly abort it. Halfway through, he found out and told me the truth. Then, he took me to the hospital for a detailed examination. From the time, it was indeed his child. Then, his parents also agreed to our relationship. Ningxi was shaken to the core when she heard this. Fortunately, fate would not mistreat the kind people. She had waited for a little life to come, and she finally had a happy ending. As for that Fangya, I'm too lazy to ask about her, but someone will always tell me that she was banned because of her bad reputation, and now she's shooting those kinds of movies. When mentioning Fangya again, Fang's expression was much calmer, as if she was talking about a stranger. I'm sorry that I misunderstood you at that time and said those words to you. Now I can't drink, so I'll use tea instead of wine to toast you. Fang apologized to her solemnly. In addition to the apology, she was more grateful. If Ningxi hadn't exposed Hu Hongda's lies, she wouldn't be in this situation today. Ningxi hurriedly returned a toast. You're welcome. You didn't know it at that time. Fang looked at her worriedly. She seemed to want to say something, but finally said, I wish you and that person. Everything goes well? Thank you. Ningxi was a little surprised. She raised her eyebrows. I thought you were going to persuade me not to be a moth to the flame. Ming Fongfong chuckled. If it were me, I might not be able to resist a man like Lu Tingxiao, let alone a little girl like you. And I can see that Lu Tingxiao really likes you. Since I became pregnant, I feel that everything in this world is possible, isn't it? Of course, I've always thought so. Hearing such a positive story, Ningxi's mood brightened a little. After Ming Fongfong left, Ningxi returned to the hotel and prepared for the opening the next day. Who knew that he would see her again at the opening ceremony? Little Ming. No, Mrs. Zhao? I'm just here to take a look. Am I not welcome? Seeing Ningxi's surprised expression, Ming Fongfong smiled. Of course you're welcome. I'm just a little surprised. You're pregnant. Is that okay? When chatting with Ming Fongfong yesterday, Ningxi had casually mentioned the reason why she came to CityQ in the opening ceremony today. She hadn't expected that Ming Fongfong would come to support her in person. It's just a few steps. What's the problem? Don't treat me like I'm made of glass. Ming Fongfong was probably often nagged by her husband at home, so she said angrily. But Ningxi didn't dare to neglect it. She hurriedly supported the pregnant lady as if she was the Empress Dowager. Mrs. Zhao, why are you here? My apologies for not going out to meet you. Even the person in charge of Huixing was flattered to see Ming Fongfong and hurriedly greeted her. I'm here to support my friend, Ming Fongfong said casually. Chapter 11:35. Ming Fongfong was not only a descendant of a prominent family in the capital, but her husband was also one of the top tycoons in the area. He hadn't expected Zhe Ling's boss to be friends with this madam. The person in charge of Huixing immediately became more respectful and valued this agency more. Mrs. Zhao, please come in. If I had known you were coming, I would have wrapped up all the corners. Otherwise, it would be terrible. Who didn't know how much President Zhao doted on his wife? Ningxi was speechless. Not bad. She was a talent for flattery. Ming Fongfong rubbed her forehead. Did you see that? I'm like this everywhere I go now. I'll have to endure for another 7 months. Ningxi chuckled. I sympathize. When Ningxi said this, she would never have thought that one day she would be the one most deserving of sympathy. Not far away, Xiao Weilan and Han Momo were surprised to see Ningxi and Ming Fongfong chatting so happily. They had been worried that they wouldn't be able to find a suitable person to attend the opening ceremony in CityQ. They hadn't expected Ningxi to invite the wife of the Zhao family in CityQ. Not only was she famous in the entertainment industry, but she and her husband's family were also celebrities. She was in line with Zhe Ling's position and requirements. Soon, it turned out that Ming Fongfong's visit this time was even better than they had imagined. After Ming Fongfong got pregnant, she had been living in seclusion and hadn't appeared in front of the media for a long time. This time, when the media in CityQ heard the news, they swarmed over and attracted a large number of Ming Fongfong's high-end hardcore fans. On the first day of opening, Huixing's Zhe Ling agency was almost sold out. The first day's turnover was millions. In contrast, the History Agency, which had opened yesterday, was a little deserted. The total turnover of 2 days was less than a fraction of Zhe Ling's in Huixing. After the opening ceremony, Ningxi deliberately stayed for a few more days to see how Zhe Ling was doing in Huixing. After a few days of observation, Huixing's daily turnover was very impressive. Ningxi now admired Xiao Weilan's strategy very much. The number of high-end people in Huixing was indeed many times more than in the new century. It gave Zhe Ling an excellent start in H province. As for Xiao Weilan and Han Momo, they felt that Ningxi was really amazing. She could surprise them every time. Ming Fongfong's support simply made Zhe Ling's reputation in Province H even more powerful. Now, new era Deng Quan's intestines were green with regret. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have gone back on his word. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Everything was already a foregone conclusion. Soon, the news reached the capital. When Ning Shueluo heard about it, she flew into a rage and scolded Qin Zifan. She would never have thought that not only would Zhe Ling bring it to Huixing Shopping Mall, but even Ming Fongfong would go to support it. Huixing Shopping Mall definitely did not have such great influence, so it must have been Zhe Ling's people who invited Ming Fongfong. Damn it. What was going on recently? Not a single thing went smoothly. Ning Shueluo was annoyed. She took out the phone again and said to the person on the other end of the phone impatiently, "How's the thing I asked you to do last time? Why is there still no result? What's the hurry? They've already taken the bait. Just wait to close the net," the man on the other end of the phone said unhurriedly. Chapter 1136. Ning Shueluo heaved a sigh of relief. A hint of viciousness flashed through her eyes. "You can be more ruthless when you attack. It'll be more realistic. Don't worry, little girl. I don't need you to teach me this kind of thing. Don't forget about me," the man said in a low voice. Ning Shueluo sounded a little annoyed. "Didn't I say that I would find a chance to help you bring it in? Next month, there would be a shipment from Luoyang City to the imperial capital. There won't be any problems. As long as you do my job well, everything will be fine." Imperial capital, Platinum Palace. Inside the study, Xiao Baozi was lying in front of Papa's desk, staring at him with his big eyes without blinking, asking for the 16th time today, "When is Mama coming back?" In the past few days, the conversation between Lu Tingxiao and Xiao Bao was basically this: "When will Mama come back? Why isn't Mama back yet? Will Mama come back today? Will Mama come back tomorrow?" It was obvious that a son who could speak was more difficult to deal with than when he couldn't speak. In the past, he only used his eyes to attack, but now he also used his voice to attack. Lu Tingxiao pinched his eyebrows and closed the laptop in front of him. Then, he tilted his head and looked at his son with a complicated expression. In the past few days, Xiao Bao had called his mother, grandfather, grandmother, and even second uncle. Although every time Xiao Bao spoke to Lu Jingli, he could tell that Xiao Bao actually liked him very much. That was because Xiao Bao spoke to him the most, and he would basically reply every time. As for him, to this day, he had yet to hear Xiao Bao call him daddy. Every time Xiao Bao looked for him, it was to talk or ask about things related to Ning Shi. Apart from that, there was nothing else. It would be a lie to say that he didn't care at all. "Xiao Bao, come here. Let's talk." Lu Tingxiao waved at his son. Xiao Bao was looking forward to his mother's return, so he wasn't in the mood to chat. It was obvious that he wasn't in the mood to chat. "You don't want to call me?" Lu Tingxiao asked directly. Little Bao's little face instantly stiffened when he heard Lu Tingxiao's words, and his expression stiffened. As expected, this child was indeed unwilling, so he deliberately did not call out to him. "Why? Can you tell me about it?" Lu Tingxiao tried to soften his tone. However, the little fellow's expression seemed to have turned even uglier. This time, he didn't even want to talk to Lu Tingxiao. He took out the writing board that he hadn't used for a long time. Although he could now express himself with words, he still had the habit of carrying a writing board with him. Then, Lu Tingxiao saw his son write 3 words on the writing board. "It's all your fault." "All my fault?" Lu Tingxiao looked at those 3 words with a puzzled expression. "What does that mean?" Little Baozi's eyes were filled with grievance, and her expression became even more indignant. She continued to write, "It's all your fault that Xiao Bao wasn't born from mommy's stomach. Xiao Bao wants to come out of mommy's belly." The little fellow's eyes were red as he held the writing board. He looked like he was about to cry. He knew that although Aunt Xiaoxi had always been so kind to him, she was not his biological mother and the person who gave birth to him. When he thought of this, he was especially angry at Papa. Why didn't Aunt Xiaoxi give birth to Papa? When Lu Tingxiao heard his son's words, he was stunned and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 1137. The little guy's logic, of course. He also wanted to have a baby with Ning Shi, but if he and Ning Shi had a baby, it would not be Xiao Bao. However, Lu Tingxiao couldn't explain this to Xiao Bao. Or maybe he didn't need to explain at all. Xiao Bao also knew this in his heart. He was just angry, too angry and wronged. Why couldn't he be Auntie Xiaoxi's biological son? In the study, the atmosphere between the father and son was a bit stagnant. At this time, Lu Tingxiao's cell phone rang. It was Ning Shi calling. "Hello, Boss, do you miss me? The girl's cheerful voice came from the other end of the phone. Judging from her tone, it should be going well over there. Yes, he had never missed her so much. Wife, if you don't come back soon, I won't be able to handle my son. Hey, I'm about to get on the plane. I'll arrive in the capital tonight, but it'll be very late. I won't disturb your sleep. I'll see you in Xiaobao tomorrow morning. I'll pick you up. Well, I'm with Momo and Director Chiao. Do you want to scare them to death? I'll take a taxi back. Good boy. By the way, is Xiaobao asleep? If not, can I talk to him? So, Lu Tingxiao gave the phone to his son who couldn't wait. Mom. As soon as Xiaobao heard Ningxi's voice, he looked very obedient. He was totally different from the angry Xiaobao just now. At the same time, in a private casino somewhere late at night, Zhuang Rongguang stared at the cards in his hand with scarlet eyes. His palms began to sweat, and the people around him were also staring at him. Finally, the trump card was revealed bit by bit. The moment they saw the trump card, the two friends next to Zhuang Rongguang were so excited that they jumped up first. Zhuang Rongguang immediately threw the card in his hand. Straight flush. Give me money. A pile of chips was pushed over. Zhuang Rongguang's face was red with joy. He had already planned to travel around the world after graduation, but his family definitely wouldn't agree. They might even impose financial sanctions on him. His sister's attitude on this matter was also very firm. She would definitely unite with his family and wouldn't give him a single cent. Recently, he had been trying to raise money, and a friend had recommended him to come here to try his luck. Although he loved to play, he also knew that there were some things that he couldn't touch. This time, he was really short of money, and seeing that a few of his brothers had won a lot, he came over to give it a try. At first, he didn't dare to play big, but he didn't expect his luck to be so good today. In just a short while, he already had millions of chips in front of him. Following that, Zhuang Rongguang opened 3 rounds in a row and won every round. Originally, he wanted to raise enough money and was ready to leave, but seeing that his luck was so good, he really couldn't bear to leave, so he continued to play under the encouragement of his companions. In a corner not far away, a square-faced man with dyed blonde hair and bare arms revealed a wretched smile as he picked up his phone and made a call. The big fish has taken the bait. Reel in the net. Not long after the blonde man hung up the phone, a tall man with a thick gold chain around his neck squeezed through the crowd and walked in front of Zhuang Rongguang. Hey, little brother. I've been watching you for a long time. Everyone says that you're in luck tonight. I don't believe it. Do you dare to have a big one with me? Come at me then. I'm not afraid of you. Chapter 11:38. An hour later, Zhuang Rongguang had lost all the chips he had won. The man wearing the gold chain laughed proudly and pulled all the chips in front of him. Kid, you're still too young to play with me. Another round. Zhuang Rongguang slammed the table with a gloomy face. Another round. You've lost all your pants. Go home and find your mother to drink milk. The man hissed. As soon as the man finished speaking, the casino burst into laughter. At that moment, Zhuang Rongguang had really lost all his pants. His clothes were all branded, and he had taken them all off as collateral. He had even lost the genuine leather wallet his sister had given him on his birthday. He had originally planned to earn some travel expenses, but who knew that he would lose everything? Most importantly, he had won so much money, but he had lost it all. Between the ups and downs, the young man's chest heaved up and down violently. He could not accept it no matter what. Stop right there. Bet with me again. If I lose, I'll write you an IO. The man wearing the gold chain laughed. Ha ha ha, little brother, I don't care about IOUs. I want to see cash. Fuck. Do you think I'll owe that little money? Come or not. If I lose, I'll get someone to send it to you immediately. Zhuang Rongguang roared. TSK. Looks like you won't be satisfied if you don't play this round. I'll be kind and play with you again. The man returned to the gambling table. A moment later, Zhuang Rongguang fell into the chair in a daze. Impossible. Impossible. Again. The man wearing the gold chain revealed a fierce look. Sure. Return me the 5 million you owe me first. I'll pay you later. Zhuang Rongguang's expression changed when he heard that he had unknowingly lost 5 million. Fuck. You're messing with me. You've already owed me 5 rounds. You still owe me. Who do you think I am? How dare you play tricks with me? Get someone to send me the money immediately. Or else. Zhuang Rongguang wanted to say something, but a few of his accomplices immediately surrounded him. They all looked fierce. Zhuang Rongguang's back was drenched in sweat. He quickly pulled his 2 buddies beside him. Do you still have money? We still have money. We gave you everything we could. That's right. I've even pressed out my watch. Fuck. What should we do now? You guys insisted on bringing me here to play. Zhuang Rongguang raged. Photon, what are you talking about? Didn't we bring you here because you said you needed money? There are winners and losers in gambling. Luck is not something we can control. Stop bullshitting with me. I don't care what you think of. Hurry up and help me raise the money. 5 million. Where are we going to raise it for you? The few of you. Have you finished discussing? If you can't take out the money, then leave one of your hands behind. The golden chain man looked at him and roared. There were too many things like this in the casino. The others either had the attitude of watching a good show, or they were indifferent and played their own games. Zhuang Rongguang's face turned pale. What's the hurry? Aren't I raising the money? He carefully looked at those people. Other than the man with the gold chain, there was a yellow-haired man in the lead. His eyes were evil, and the others had exaggerated tattoos and scars on their bodies. They were cursing, and it was obvious that they were hooligans. However, they looked unfamiliar, and their accent was mixed in when they spoke. They seemed to be foreigners. Chapter 11:39. All in all, they were not to be trifled with. At this time, the 2 friends next to Zhuang Rongguang looked at each other, and then one of them said, Photon, how about this? Changzi and I will go out and raise money for you first. Otherwise, we won't be able to get money just by staying here. That's right. We'll get the money as soon as possible and send it to you. Zhuang Rongguang looked at the few fierce-looking men and could only agree. You two, hurry up. Yes, yes, yes. The 2 of them ran out quickly. Then, Zhuang Rongguang was brought to an abandoned warehouse not far from the casino. After the group of people brought him over, they ignored him and continued to drink and play cards noisily. As they were guarding the only exit, he had no chance to escape. It was late at night, and the place was gloomy and had a musty smell. Moreover, the place was remote. Even if he were to die here, no one would know. Thinking of this, Zhuang Rongguang could not help but feel a chill down his spine. If it were any other time, he would have moved out of his house. This time, however, he had caused too much trouble. If his family found out, he would be done for. Therefore, he could only place his hopes on his 2 friends. However, as time passed, there was still no movement from the 2 of them. There was not even a phone call. Hey, brat, why aren't they here yet? Your 2 friends wouldn't have run away, would they? The man with the golden chain kicked him and asked. Impossible. I'll call them right now. Maybe they're already on their way here. Zhuang Rongguang quickly made a phone call. In the end, the phone rang a dozen times, but no one picked up. After it hung up automatically, Zhuang Rongguang continued to call, but this time, the phone was turned off. Zhuang Rongguang's forehead was covered in cold sweat. His hand trembled as he dialed another person's number, but it was still turned off. Shit. Zhuang Rongguang was so angry that he almost smashed his phone. Usually, when they played together, he was the one who paid. Even when they were picking up girls, he was the one who lent them money and a car. In the end, when something happened, they actually disappeared. They really ran away? Fuck. They're messing with us. The group of people was instantly enraged. Wait. They will definitely come back, and they should be gathering the money now. 5 million is not a small sum, and they will need some time, Zhuang Rongguang said anxiously. However, this time, those people had lost their patience. Fuck you. I think you won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Stomp this kid to death for me. How dare you? Do you know who I am? My father is Zhuang Liaoyuan. Under extreme fear, Zhuang Rongguang blurted out. When those people heard this, They did not show any signs of fear on their faces. Instead, they laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha. Zhuang Liaoyuan is your father. That Zhuang Zhongren is my grandfather. How can you be Zhuang Liaoyuan's son when you're so useless? Pooh. You guys. Zhuang Rongguang was so angry that his face and neck turned red. Stomp. The man with the golden chain looked gloomy. Then, the man with dyed blonde hair walked over with a sharp machete in his hand. The other man held Zhuang Rongguang's hand. These hooligans. They were really going to stomp his hand. Zhuang Rongguang had been in the imperial capital for a long time. Basically, everyone in the circle knew him. No matter how big the commotion was, they still had to give face to the Zhuang family. No one really dared to do anything to him. This was the first time someone dared to do this to him. Chapter 1140. No matter how muddle-headed he was only 18 years old. Zhuang Rongguang was trembling in fear, his face pale as he struggled. Wait, give me another chance. I'll call someone to send the money over. I'll definitely send it over this time. I promise. The man with the gold chain looked at the blonde and said, Let's be clear. We want cash. I got it. Zhuang Rongguang nodded as he dialed Zhuang Ku-er's number. Hello, Rongguang? It's so late. Where are you? Why aren't you back yet? Zhuang Ku-er's anxious and reproachful voice came through the phone. Sis, save me. Bring 5 million to East 3rd Avenue. There's an abandoned warehouse. Hurry up. Zhuang Rongguang didn't have time to say anything else and hurriedly shouted, What's going on? Tell me. Zhuang Ku-er's tone changed. Sis, don't ask. Just send the money over. My life is in your hands. If you don't tell me, I'll send you 5 million. Is 5 million a small amount? Did you send someone to the hospital again? No. Zhuang Rongguang could only brace himself as he looked at the people surrounding him. I owe them 5 million in gambling debt. Gambling debt? Zhuang Rongguang, are you crazy? How dare you touch this kind of thing? Zhuang Ku-er screamed angrily. Sis, lower your voice. I beg you, sis. Save me. If you don't come, they'll chop off my hand. I beg you, sis. As Zhuang Rongguang spoke, he was kicked by the person next to him, causing him to scream miserably. Don't touch him. I'll send the money over immediately. Don't touch him. Do you hear me? Zhuang Ku-er shouted. The man took Zhuang Rongguang's phone and said to the person on the other end, I'll give you 30 minutes. If you exceed 1 minute, I'll chop off one of his fingers. With that, he hung up the phone with a pa sound. Zhuang Ku-er looked at the phone that had been hung up, her face pale. Yellow. Gambling. Poison. That was something the Zhuang family would never allow to touch. If he touched even a little bit of it, Zhuang Liaoyu could really kill him with one shot. Grandpa has a heart condition, so he can't get any air. He couldn't call the police either. If he did, his glory would be ruined. Fortunately, his father wasn't home tonight. Zhuang Ku-er had no choice but to gather the money overnight and immediately rush to the place the other party had mentioned. Time ticked by, and Zhuang Rongguang felt like he was being cooked in a pot of oil. He didn't know if his sister would be able to raise the money. She wouldn't just abandon him, right? After all, he had always been causing trouble for her. She would probably be annoyed to death if she had to clean up his mess. The more Zhuang Rongguang thought about his 2 friends who had abandoned him, the more afraid he became. 3 more minutes. The man looked at the time on his phone and said, Blondie blew on the sharp knife in his hand. Don't worry, I'm very skilled. 1 stab. I guarantee you won't feel any pain. The cut will be neat and clean. There are still 3 minutes left. What's the hurry? Zhuang Rongguang said with a trembling voice. The man with the golden chain sneered and continued to drink and chat with his companions. Finally, 3 minutes passed. Chapter 1141. It was only 3 minutes, but Zhuang Rongguang felt like a century had passed. The blonde gave the tattooed man a look. The tattooed man put down the bottle in his hand, walked over slowly, and pressed Zhuang Rongguang's hand. The blonde spat on the knife's edge. Kid, time's up. It's only one finger now. Tell me, which one should I chop first? The blonde's eyes were like a poisonous snake, scanning the youth's 10 fingers one by one. Zhuang Rongguang began to struggle like crazy. Let me go. Let me go. My dad is Zhuang Liaoyuan, and my grandfather is Zhuang Zhengren. If you dare to touch me, my family will never let you go. Ha 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 ha. Are you sure? Even if you're really Zhuang Liaoyuan's son, you're just a piece of trash. What's the big deal if I cripple you? Maybe your family will even thank me for helping to educate you. Little brother, if you really don't understand, then let me teach you. The underworld isn't as easy as you think. If you don't pay back what you owe, then you have to pay the price. It's the same no matter where you go. Even if it's the Zhuang family, I'm not afraid. If you want to make it big, then I'd like to see who's the unlucky one. The blonde's tone was completely fearless. As he spoke, the blonde man had already separated Zhuang Rongguang's fingers and aimed the knife at his little finger. Ah! Zhuang Rongguang let out a heart-wrenching cry. Stop! At the same time, a girl's roar came from the warehouse door. The blonde first looked at the girl at the door, then impatiently patted Zhuang Rongguang's face with the back of the knife. What are you yelling for? You haven't done it yet. What a coward. Zhuang Rongguang looked at his undamaged little finger and was already scared to the point of tears and snot. Then he looked at the person at the door with a face full of hope, as if looking at the last life-saving straw. Sis, save me. He had always boasted that he had friends all over the world and called them brothers all the time, and at this time, he could only ask for help at all costs. Only this sister that he had always hated. Zhuang Rongguang couldn't tell what he was feeling. Zhuang Ku stood at the door, panting. Seeing that the other party hadn't come yet, her face was full of shock. She looked at Zhuang Rongguang with disappointment and anger. The yellow-haired man's eyes swept over Zhuang Ku's body like a sticky fly. He asked faintly, Did you bring the money? I've brought it. Count it. 5 million, not a cent less. Zhuang Ku threw a box in front of them. The man with the gold chain carried the box over and threw it to the back for his companions to count. A few men gathered around and began to count the number. Because they were in a hurry, Zhuang Ku's suitcase contained cash, gold bars, and some jewelry. Anyway, it would definitely add up. After a while, one of them shouted, Boss, no problem. This girl is quite honest. Chapter 1142. The blonde man raised his eyebrows. Girl, where are you going? Didn't I give you the money? What else do you want? I promised to let your brother go, but I didn't promise to let you go. The blonde man looked at Zhuang Ku from head to toe. What's the meaning of this? How can you go back on your word after taking the money? Zhuang Rongguang was furious. The man with the gold chain laughed. Hee, we did give you the money, but you've wasted so much time. Shouldn't we collect some interest? Interest? Zhuang Ku had a bad premonition. What bullshit interest? I think you're looking for trouble on purpose. Zhuang Rongguang was so angry that his chest heaved up and down, but Zhuang Ku pulled him back. Now that they had the advantage in numbers, it wouldn't do them any good to use force. You want more money, right? I can raise it, but I need some time, Zhuang Ku said. The gold chain man and the yellow-haired man looked at each other and revealed a strange smile. The yellow-haired man touched his chin and looked at the woman in front of him wantonly. There's no need for money. We don't lack that bit of money. As long as you stay and accompany us for one night, then we'll pay the interest. Zhuang Rongguang couldn't hold it in anymore. He broke free from Zhuang Ku and rushed forward. Bastard, I'll kill you. However, he was so small that he was no match for these people. A man with a scar on his face rushed out from the crowd and punched him to the ground. Bastard, who asked you to be so arrogant? Damn it, how dare you be so arrogant here? At the same time, a wretched-looking man in a black singlet with tattoos all over his body walked towards Zhuang Ku. Step by step, Zhuang Ku'er didn't expect Zhuang Rongguang to mess with such a person, but it was too late to say anything. She could only stagger and retreat step by step. However, she was just a girl, and there were all men here. Where could she run to? She had only taken a few steps when the tattooed man grabbed her arm and pushed her to the ground. Her jacket was immediately torn off, revealing the thin pajamas underneath. Yo, this girl is pretty smart, huh? You came dressed like this? The tattooed man's eyes were filled with lust, and the others also burst into laughter. When Zhuang Ku'er heard the news that Zhuang Rongguang had been arrested, she was burning with anxiety. The other party only gave her 30 minutes to raise the money, or they would chop off her fingers. How could she have time to change her clothes? She could only put on a coat and came out. She did not even have time to change her shoes. She was still wearing slippers. Let go. Let me go. Zhuang Ku'er struggled and slapped him. The tattooed man's face emitted a pa sound. Suddenly, he was filled with hostility and started to tear Zhuang Ku'er's clothes. Bastard. All of you, stop. If you have the ability, come at me. Don't touch my sister. In the corner, Zhuang Rongguang saw Zhuang Ku'er, who was pressed to the ground, and his face suddenly twisted. Just now, she was beaten to the ground and was on the verge of death. At this time, she suddenly jumped up and fought with the two men like crazy. Don't touch her. Don't touch her. If you have the guts, come at me. Zhuang Rongguang didn't know where he got the strength from, but he actually broke free from the two strong men and rushed to Zhuang Ku'er, trying to push the tattooed man away. Chapter 11:43. As a result, the man was instantly enraged. He waved his fist and roared at Zhuang Rongguang. The others who were watching also pounced on Zhuang Rongguang. Rongguang! Zhuang Ku'er clutched her messy clothes and screamed. The next second, Zhuang Ku'er was slapped to the ground. The tattooed man pulled her hair even more roughly and dragged her to a corner. Bitch, what the hell are you screaming for? Get over here. You'll have to scream later. Sis, let go of her. Zhuang Rongguang was surrounded and beaten up by the men. Gradually, he could no longer make a sound. He could only stare in the direction Zhuang Ku'er was being dragged away. His eyes were bloodshot with tears. Seeing Zhuang Ku'er being dragged away, pressed to the ground by the man and having her clothes torn, and he could do nothing but watch helplessly as his sister was taken by the hooligan, Zhuang Rongguang felt that his heart was about to explode. His throat was already hoarse, and he could only let out a weak roar like a trapped beast in his throat. Don't touch my sister. Don't touch my sister. Don't touch my sister. Don't touch her. He had never hated himself as much as he did at that moment. He hated himself. He wanted to kill himself. He wanted nothing more than to kill himself with a single slash. He was an animal. He was an animal. Beside the warehouse door, the man with the gold chain lit a cigarette for the blondie and revealed a worried expression. Is that enough? Wasn't this a little too much? Master Goose said it was just to scare them. What's the rush? Since it's a scare, of course it has to be done. Boss wants to be a hero saving a damsel in distress to win her favor, right? The more realistic it is, the better the effect. The blondie spoke unhurriedly. The man with the gold chain looked in the direction of Zhuang Ku'er in the corner and revealed a wretched smile. I'm afraid that if this goes on, old K really won't be able to hold it in anymore. That girl is so fresh. Hee, can't hold it in anymore? Let us brothers have some fun. The blondie looked in the direction of the tattooed man, who was clearly losing control, and sneered. The man with the gold chain's expression changed. Hey, don't mess around. That is Zhuang Liaoyuan's daughter. Tisk. So what if she's Zhuang Liaoyuan's daughter? Blondie slowly took out his phone and prepared to call his employer. However, at this moment, a person appeared at the door like a ghost. She was wearing a burgundy dress with high heels and a black windbreaker on the outside. Her naturally curly hair draped over her shoulders like seaweed. It turned out to be a woman as beautiful as a fairy. The cigarette in the man's mouth fell to the ground, and the yellow-haired man forgot to make a call. Even the man who was tearing Zhuang Ku's clothes was stunned when he saw the woman at the door. Xiaoxi, let's go. Let's go. Leave this place quickly. Let's go. Just now, when those people were not paying attention, Zhuang Ku nervously pressed a number, and then quickly and secretly sent a message for help to that number. However, when she saw that it was Ningxi's number, she regretted it. She was afraid that Ningxi would be in danger because of her. Who would have thought that the thing she was most worried about would still happen? At this moment, seeing that Ningxi actually came alone, Zhuang Ku's face was suddenly full of horror, and she hurriedly shouted for Ningxi to leave. At the door of the dilapidated warehouse, against the dim moonlight outside, the woman's black windbreaker fluttered in the night wind. When her gaze fell on the corner, she saw a disheveled girl who was almost pressed under a man's body. In an instant, a murderous look appeared in her eyes. The blondie at the door stared at the unexpected appearance of Ningxi, and his face was suddenly full of lust. Yo, another girl? I was just worried that I wouldn't have enough to share. However, just as he finished speaking, a gust of wind blew past and a huge force smashed into his temple. The yellow-haired man was kicked to the ground and laid there motionless. He was actually knocked unconscious by the kick. Chapter 1144. Seeing that the situation was not right, the others suddenly became vigilant and all rushed up together. However, this woman's movement was like a ghost. No matter what they did, they couldn't get close to her. Instead, they were beaten to the ground one after another. They had encountered countless powerful policemen and escaped from the pursuit of the police countless times, but they had never encountered such a powerful opponent. This woman, who was she, with a cold and expressionless face, Ningxi stepped on the men who were rolling on the ground and wailing, and walked step by step to Zhuang Ku. Xiaoxi. Zhuang Ku covered her body with her arms, trembling uncontrollably. Ningxi calmly took off her windbreaker and wrapped it tightly around Zhuang Ku. Xiaoxi, be careful. Zhuang Ku saw that the tattooed man behind her had gotten up with a stick in his hand and was about to hit Ningxi's head. Ningxi carefully placed Zhuang Ku against the wall and then suddenly turned around. Instead of retreating, she moved forward. Before the stick in the man's hand fell, she kicked the man's wrist. The stick fell to the ground with a bang, and then the man was kicked to the ground. Until he fell to the ground, the man still didn't know why this woman's moves could be so fast, and each move accurately hit his fatal point. Ningxi looked down at the tattooed man who was beaten to the ground, and then at the man who had just bullied Zhuang Ku. Then without a word, she bent down and squatted in front of him, grabbed his collar, and the next second, she punched the man's face hard, and then another and another. The girl's face was hollow and expressionless, as if she was isolated from the outside world. She was completely immersed in her own world. Her movements were mechanical as she punched the man again and again. The empty warehouse kept emitting horrifying sounds of bang, 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 bang. The man's face was almost unrecognizable, and Ningxi's hands were completely dyed red with blood. She couldn't tell if it was the man's blood or if it was the blood from her own hand when she hit the man with too much force. However, she didn't stop at all. Her punches were fiercer and fiercer, and her eyes didn't seem to be human. She was like a devil who had climbed out of hell. Everyone present was stunned. The men just now all fell to the ground, their legs weak, their faces full of fear. Even Zhuang Rongguang and Zhuang Ku were terrified. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded behind Ningxi. Bitch. Stop. Raise your hands. The man with the golden chain was actually holding a gun in his hand, and the black muzzle was pointing at Ningxi's head. Zhuang Rongguang and Zhuang Ku's faces instantly changed. Xiaoxi. Ningxi's attention was attracted. She dropped the tattooed man and wiped the blood off the corner of her mouth with the back of her hand. Her eyes fell on the gun in the hands of the man with the golden chain. Raise your hands. Get over here. Take off your own clothes. The man with the golden chain roared. Xiaoxi. Zhuang Kuer was so anxious that her eyes turned red. Your target is me, isn't it? Let her go. I was, but I'm not anymore. This bitch hurts so many of our brothers, and she wants to let it go like this? No way. The men who had just fallen to the ground struggled to get up and surrounded Ningxi fiercely. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Rongguang, cover Ku-er's eyes. Ningxi said calmly. Zhuang Rongguang didn't know what was going on with him. Before his brain could react, his body had quickly followed Ningxi's request. He stumbled over and covered Zhuang Ku-er's eyes. At the moment when Zhuang Rongguang covered Zhuang Kuer's eyes, a bang sound of a gunshot rang out in the empty night sky. The man with the golden chain fell to the ground with his eyes wide open, and there was a bloody bullet hole in the middle of his forehead. And in Ningxi's hand, there was a gun pointing straight at the place where the man with the golden chain stood just now. Chapter 11:45. When the leading man with the gold chain fell to the ground with a bloody bullet hole in his forehead, the faces of all the thugs who had surrounded Ningxi changed. One of them subconsciously touched his waist, and sure enough, it was empty. The gun in the woman's hand was clearly his gun, and he didn't know when she had touched it. Damn it! Out of the 3 leaders in their group, one of them had fainted after being kicked by this woman as soon as she entered. Another had been smashed into a bloody mess by her fists, and the last one had been killed with a single blow. These 3 people had only recently started to move around the capital. It was rumored that they were ruthless characters in the underworld, mingling in major casinos to do white flower business, and even had channels to get firearms. Now, all of them were killed by a woman. If Ningxi, who was beating people with a cold face just now, was a lunatic, then at this moment, when she held a gun in her hand, she was simply a machine without feelings, full of murderous aura. In the face of a living human life, even people like them would tremble a little when holding a gun, but the woman in front of them, from taking out the gun to aiming to kill, from the beginning to the end, it only took half a second. This was not a delicate beauty. She was simply a female devil. Zhuang Rongguang covered Zhuang Ku-er's eyes, but he himself saw the scene of Ningxi shooting and killing people, and his face was pale without a trace of blood. Although he was born in a military family, this was the first time in his life that he had seen someone kill someone with his own eyes. Just a few steps away from him, a living human life was gone just like that. Under the influence of his father and grandfather, he more or less knew that even if he was talented in shooting, it was completely different from actual combat. Even professional police and snipers, many of them trained for many years, but they still didn't dare to shoot at a living person, and after the first killing, they even had to go through a long period of psychological counseling. But Ningxi, whether before or after shooting, the expression on her face didn't change at all. Zhuang Rongguang was shocked by the bloody scene in front of him. Seeing a living person being killed in front of him, his heart was filled with extreme fear. But more than that, he deeply admired the woman in front of him, as well as despised himself even more intensely. Although he was stupid, he wasn't that stupid. The moment he saw the man with the golden chain holding a gun, he realized that these people were definitely not ordinary hooligans. How could ordinary hooligans have guns? If it weren't for Ningxi's spear just now, they would have already launched a crazy counterattack. As for him, not only did he implicate his sister when his sister was being bullied, he could only watch helplessly without the slightest chance to retaliate. Xiaoxi, the moment Zhuang Ku-er heard the gunshot, she was swept by great panic and forcibly pulled Zhuang Rongguang's hand away from her eyes. Seeing that it was the man with the golden chain who fell down, and Ningxi was still standing there, unscathed, Zhuang Ku-er felt relieved. At the same time, her eyes were full of worry. That shot was fired by Xiaoxi? Filthy whore. You're dead meat. You killed someone. You actually killed someone. One of the thugs struggled to suppress his fear and shouted in a trembling voice. Chapter 1146. Ningxi's expression was as if she had heard a funny joke. Her lips curled up slightly. So, do you want me to help you call the police? You. The few thugs looked at each other, their faces pale, unable to say a word. These three people had boasted in front of them when they were drunk, saying that they were the most wanted criminals on the police's red tape, and even bragged about how many police officers they had killed. Wanted criminals of that level. If they were caught, they would be shot immediately. How would they dare to call the police? Privately setting up a casino, kidnapping for ransom, attempted rape, and harboring a fugitive. All of them would have to go to jail. The few of them looked at each other and came to the conclusion that this woman in front of them was scarier than the three bullies combined. It was better to run. Thus, the few of them broke into a run. However, they had just taken a few steps when a woman's cold voice came from behind. Stop. Everyone subconsciously stopped in their tracks. Did I allow you to leave? The woman's tone was like a summon from hell, causing everyone's calves to tremble subconsciously. Ningxi slightly lowered her eyes, concealing a trace of the bloodthirsty excitement and madness of a wild beast before a hunt. She deliberately did not call the police, but came alone. How could she allow them to leave so easily? Tonight, no one can leave. Ningxi's gaze swept past those people like the gaze of death, her tone without a trace of warmth. Just now, who else touched her? No, I didn't. I didn't either. I swear I didn't touch a single hair on her. They were the ones who caught her just now. In an instant, everyone began to look flustered, swearing to deny, almost swearing 18 generations of their ancestors into it. Ningxi's gaze slowly fell on one of the men who was hiding behind a few people, preparing to sneak away. Just now, when the tattooed man was tearing Ku Er's clothes, it was him who helped to hold Ku Er's hands and feet. The moment that man noticed Ningxi's gaze, he knew something was wrong. However, he did not have the time to escape. A bang sound was heard. The next second, accompanied by a pig-like wail, the man's wrist exploded into a flower of blood, rolling on the ground because of the pain. In the empty warehouse, mournful wails were incessant. Blood flowed all over the ground. Damn bitch. I want your life. The man suddenly cursed and pulled out a pistol with his other hand. But the moment he raised the gun in Ningxi's hand was knocked down. He covered his hand and rolled on the ground, wailing. This woman's gun was inhumanly fast. Beauty, spare my life. Big sis, please spare my life. We didn't even lay a finger on your friend. Really, believe us. Those who had guns were crippled, not to mention those who were unarmed. No one even had the heart to resist. The remaining people all knelt down one after another with a plop sound. However, Ningxi didn't look like she was going to let them go. The murderous aura around her was getting stronger and stronger, and the gun in her hand was pointed directly at the head of the monkey-like man. Now that both of his hands were crippled, he had no ability to resist at all. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Chapter 1147. Big Sister. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I don't know anything. I'm just a minion that runs errands for others. I'll do whatever the boss says. Every debt has its debtor, and it has nothing to do with me. The monkey-faced man was completely overwhelmed by fear at this moment. He looked at the gun pointed at him and screamed for mercy. You touched her. The woman's expression did not change at all. That gaze, she really wanted to kill him. I didn't. I just grabbed that girl's hand. No. I didn't mean it. I beg you to spare my life. I beg you. The man's legs were trembling, and there was a stinky yellow liquid dripping from his crotch. He was actually scared to the point of losing control. Ningxi did not have the patience to listen to the man's nonsense. Instead, because of his noise, the hostility in her eyes became more out of control. The picture of Zhuang Ku Er being pressed under the man's body and raped repeatedly appeared in her mind. That picture, gradually merged with the scene 5 years ago. It made her head hurt, and it became more and more difficult for her to control herself. Ningxi's finger pulled the trigger harder and harder, and was about to pull the trigger in the next second. Just then, a pair of warm and soft arms suddenly rushed over and hugged her from behind. Xiaoxi, enough, enough. Calm down. I'm fine. I'm fine. Look at me. Xiaoxi, calm down. Okay? Xiaoxi, Xiaoxi. The girl's anxious and worried voice rang in her ears again and again. Ningxi's stiff back gradually softened, and the scarlet color in her eyes also went out little by little, and her eyes became dark again. At the moment when Ningxi put down the gun, those people immediately seized the opportunity to run out. Ningxi glanced at those people out of the corner of her eye and raised her hand to shoot at the feet of one of the men who was carrying a box. The man screamed and was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He hurriedly and respectfully delivered the box in his hand to the she-devil's side before he stumbled away. Damn it! That was 5 million. Forget it. It was more important to stay alive. In that box was the 5 million that Zhuangku Air raised overnight. We've got the money back. Xiaoxi, let's get out of here. Zhuangku Er hurriedly urged, fearing that there would be another accident. You guys go first. I'll clean up the scene, Ningxi said. But you. Zhuangku Er was obviously worried about her. Go. Ningxi patted Zhuangku Er's shoulder with a gentle expression. Then, her gaze shot towards Zhuang Rongguang like an ice blade. Get over here and help your sister. Oh. Zhuang Rongguang scrambled to get up. Because he was in a hurry, he tripped over the body of the man with the golden chain. He staggered and almost fell. Only then did he quickly run to Zhuangku Er and carefully help her out. Ningxi cleverly cleaned up all the traces she had left at the scene and then called the police. Generally, such a situation would only be defined by the police as a gang fight to the death. What's more, after a few fights just now, she discovered that the 3 people leading the group were not ordinary hooligans. They also had the accent of the Golden Triangle, the paradise for drug dealers. They were most likely a group of criminals on the register. How did Zhuang Rongguang offend such a person? She didn't have time to think and quickly left the scene, her figure disappearing into the vast night. Chapter 1148. On the road, Zhuangku Er waited anxiously beside the car for a long time. When she saw Ningxi come out, she finally breathed a sigh of relief and hurried to greet her. Xiaoxi, let's go. Ningxi opened the door of the passenger seat and quickly helped Zhuangku Er into the car. Zhuang Rongguang shrank in the back seat of the car like a quail without saying a word. Zhuangku Er subconsciously gathered Ningxi's coat and said uneasily, If I go home and am seen by the servants, it may be very troublesome to explain. Go to my place first? Okay. Zhuangku Er nodded and looked at the girl who was driving with slightly red eyes. Xiaoxi, I'm really sorry about what happened tonight. At that time, I was in a hurry and didn't think much before sending the text message. Later, I was afraid that if something bad happened to you because of me, I really couldn't absolve myself from the blame. I'm really sorry. Ningxi glanced at Zhuangku Er from the rearview mirror. Her eyes were no longer as bloody as they had been in the warehouse. She said softly, Don't say sorry. I'm very happy that you think of me at this time. Looking at Ningxi's gentle look, Zhuangku Er couldn't tell what she felt. She took out a tissue and wiped the blood on Ningxi's cheek. But, Xiaoxi, how did you get here so fast? I've been on a business trip in another province these days. I'm flying back to the capital tonight. I saw your text message on the way home by taxi from the airport. Fortunately, the car was not far from here. Otherwise, if she had been one step late, she couldn't imagine what would have happened. Hearing this, Zhuangku Er showed a look of understanding, and then her face was full of worry. Xiaoxi, will this matter affect you? After all, you just... Ningxi tilted her head and gave Zhuangku Er a reassuring look. Trust my anti-tracking ability. Okay. Zhuangku Er nodded hard. She trusted the person in front of her unconditionally and without reason. In the back seat, Zhuang Rongguang stared at Ningxi in a trance. In his eyes, there was a kind of yearning and longing that he didn't even notice. He wanted to be such a person who could be relied on, a person who could be trusted and relied on unreservedly. He wanted to be a real man. Half an hour later, Ningxi drove the car to her villa. Entering the room, Ningxi immediately found a set of clean clothes for Zhuangku Air. Go take a hot bath and change your clothes? Yes. After Zhuangku left to take a shower, Zhuang Rongguang stood in the living room at a loss. He had thought that with Ningxi's temper, she would definitely scold him and perhaps even beat him half to death. So he had long been prepared to face everything. In the end, Ningxi didn't even look at him, let alone scold him. It was as if he was invisible and completely ignored. Ningxi's indifferent attitude made him feel worse than scolding or beating him up. After a while, Zhuangku came out of the shower. Ningxi asked Steamed Bun to bring her the medical kit, and then called Zhuangku Air to sit beside her. Come here. Let me have a look at your injuries. Ningxi only took a quick glance and saw that Zhuangku's wrists and neck were full of shocking strangulation marks. Her snow-white skin made them even more glaring, not to mention the green and purple marks on her exposed skin. Chapter 1149. Seeing Ningxi's face becoming more and more gloomy, and even faintly showing some of the emotions that she had lost control in the warehouse, Zhuangku hurriedly took her hand and comforted her. Xiaoxi, it's not a big deal. It's just a superficial wound. However, hearing this, Ningxi's face did not show any signs of improvement. This was just a superficial wound? For any woman, the trauma that such an incident would bring to their hearts, and even the fear that would affect their entire lives in the future, could not be measured by the number of external wounds. Moreover, Zhuangku was an innocent girl who had been well protected since she was a child. She had never been wronged like this and encountered such a terrible thing since she was a child. Fortunately, she came in time, and those people did not succeed. Otherwise, she would not let any of them go tonight, including Zhuang Rongguang. Ningxi took a deep breath and finally restrained the raging, gloomy aura around her. She gently applied medicine to Zhuangku's wound. It's a little painful. Bear with it. Zhuangku was afraid that Ningxi would lose control again, so she did not dare to cry out in pain. She repeatedly comforted her. It's okay. It doesn't hurt much. In the corner, Zhuang Rongguang, who had not said a word since they arrived at the warehouse, stared blankly at the terrible bruises on Zhuangku's body. In his mind, the scene that Zhuangku was bullied by those people and he could not even move a finger was replayed crazily. The gloomy clouds around the boy became denser and denser, and the pressure became lower and lower. In the end, it seemed that he had finally reached the limit and suddenly exploded. Zhuang Rongguang's fists creaked and his back trembled more and more violently. In the quiet living room, the boy's throat uttered intermittent sobs and whimpers like a trapped beast, and then the sound became louder and louder. Hearing the sound behind her, Ningxi stopped applying medicine to Zhuangku's wound. She turned around and looked at the boy who was covered in blood and ashes and crying uncontrollably with scarlet eyes. To be honest, the person she wanted to kill the most in the warehouse was Zhuang Rongguang. The reason why she had not spoken to Zhuang Rongguang or even looked at him was that she was afraid that she would lose control. With her temper, it was a waste of air to keep such a scumbag alive. Ningxi treated the last wound on Zhuangku's body. Then, she put down the medicine bottle in her hand and closed the lid of the medicine box. She looked up at the boy calmly. Zhuang Rongguang, you want freedom. You want to be unrestrained. You want to live a life without being controlled by anyone, right? Well, let me tell you. Whether it's smoking, drinking, fighting, racing, or gambling, that's right. It's all your freedom. You are already 18 years old, an adult. You have the right to choose the life you want. Even your parents have no right to decide your future. You can do whatever you want. At this point, Ningxi's eyes suddenly turned cold, but the premise is that you have the ability to bear all the consequences of your choice. If not, then don't fucking say not to interfere with your life all day long, while letting your loved ones worry about you and put themselves in danger. Asking a girl who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken to raise 5 million in the middle of the night and rush to such a chaotic and dangerous place to get money to ransom you. Ask yourself, are you still a man? Zhuang Rongguang choked with tears and walked to Zhuang Ku'er. He knelt down and slapped himself hard in the face. Sister, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Chapter 1150. Sister, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Seeing her brother kneeling in front of her and crying, Zhuang Ku'er felt sorry for him, but she also felt helpless. She had watched him become like this step by step over the years. She was so numb that she didn't have any hope for him. She didn't expect him to make great achievements, nor did she want him to be the leader of the Liu family in the future. Her only hope was that he could live safely. But now, he almost lost his life. She was at her wits' end with her brother. But now, seeing his apologetic and remorseful look, she didn't dare to have any hope. No one knew if he would return to his original self after the incident. Last time, he went to practice shooting because of Ning Shi, and it only lasted for a few days. Zhuang Ku'er's belly full of words finally turned into a helpless sigh. Get up. Don't go to that kind of place again. Zhuang Rongguang nodded hard, wiped his tears, and stood up. Where are your two friends, Sun Bin and Liang Haoqiang? Are they all right? Zhuang Ku'er suddenly remembered and hurriedly asked with concern. As far as she knew, Rongguang was always inseparable from his two best friends. The two of them were famous hedonistic sons in the capital. They were ignorant and incompetent. When the three of them got together, they stirred up trouble all day long. Therefore, they must have played a part in this incident. Zhuang Rongguang's face changed when he heard Zhuang Ku'er mention those two people. Oh, those two people. Once something happened, they ran away without a trace. Until now, they didn't even call him. They didn't even care about his life. Both of them had their cards blocked by their families. He was the only one who could still get a little from Zhuang Ku'er, and he had to share it with them every time. He thought that he was very generous and righteous, but who knew that he was just a sucker, a complete idiot? Zhuang Ku'er seemed to have guessed something from his expression. She sighed and didn't ask anymore. They probably ran away and didn't have time to care about him. She had told him countless times not to associate with those messy people, but every time she mentioned it, he would fly into a rage and say that she didn't respect his friends. Then they parted on bad terms and he didn't go home for a few days. Now, are you going back or staying here for one night? Ningxi asked. Xiaoxi, can I stay here for one night? Zhuang Ku'er asked tentatively. Ningxi nodded. Of course. Zhuang Ku'er immediately became happy. Then I'll leave a message to the nanny. Zhuang Rongguang raised his hand weakly. I want to stay here too. Would that work? Sister Ning. Ningxi glanced at him expressionlessly. The sofa. Zhuang Rongguang immediately said. No problem. He could even sleep on the floor. I'll guard the door for you in the living room. Ku'er, sleep with me tonight. Ningxi said to Zhuang Ku'er. Well, okay. Zhuang Ku'er naturally couldn't ask for more. He went into the bedroom. Ningxi made the bed, and then they lay on the bed. In order to prevent Zhuang Ku'er from having nightmares at night, Ningxi had been looking for a relaxing and interesting topic to chat with her to distract her. Zhuang Ku'er lay on the soft and comfortable mattress that emitted the scent of sunshine. Beside him was the girl's warm and sweet scent, and in his ears was a soft tone. The last trace of fear in his heart was gone. Chapter 1151. It turned out that this was how it felt to have a friend with whom she could share her happiness and troubles and sleep in the same bed with at night. How nice, Xiaoxi, thank you. I'm really not afraid at all. At the beginning, I was really scared and desperate. I was confused, but fortunately, you came. So it's okay now. You don't have to worry about me anymore. While Ningxi was comforting Zhuang Ku'er was also comforting her. That's good. Go to sleep. Okay, good night. At night, the two girls snuggled up to sleep. Although Ningxi closed her eyes, she didn't fall asleep until she heard a steady breathing sound beside her. At night, Zhuang Ku'er slept soundly. There was a faint warmth on her face. She didn't panic or have nightmares at all. Ningxi's heart, which had been in her throat all this time, slowly relaxed. Fortunately, she didn't want to see another her. She tried her best to stop this from happening and comforted Zhuang Ku'er as if she was saving herself. Just then, there was a light knock on the door. Ningxi got up slightly. Come in. The door was gently pushed open, and Zhuang Rongguang stood quietly at the door. Sister Shi, is my sister asleep? Ningxi, yes, I. Zhuang Rongguang looked at Ningxi and hesitated. Sister Shi, can I talk to you? Ningxi glanced at him, gently lifted the quilt, and got out of bed. In the living room, Zhuang Rongguang stood in front of Ningxi as if he had nowhere to put his hands and feet. Then he quickly rushed to the side and dragged a chair to Ningxi's side. Sister Shi, sit down. Then he poured her a glass of water and brought it to her. Then he stood in front of her, twisting and turning, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Ningxi picked up the glass, took a sip of water, and squinted at the hesitant boy. Just say it. Zhuang Rongguang bit his lip and hung his head. After hesitating for a long time, he said listlessly, Sister Shi, can I still be saved? Ningxi raised her eyes and glanced at the nervous boy, who seemed to be waiting for her to pronounce his death sentence. God helps those who help themselves. You can still stand here today and ask me this question, which means that you can still be saved. Hearing this, Zhuang Rongguang's tense back suddenly relaxed a little. His eyes were slightly red. I know the story of the boy who cried wolf. I'm afraid that no matter what I say now, you won't believe me. But this time, I will prove it with my actions. Zhuang Rongguang stared at Ningxi with bright eyes and said excitedly, Sister Shi, I want to be a man like you in the future. The corners of Ningxi's mouth twitched. Your dream? No, the main point is, damn it, I'm a woman. Sister Shi, what did you do before? Is he really just an ordinary actor? Zhuang Rongguang asked with excitement and curiosity. Ningxi's eyes flickered. What if I say no? Zhuang Rongguang was shocked by the dangerous glint in the girl's eyes. He then said firmly, no matter what you did in the past, good or evil, good or bad, you treated my sister so well and helped us so much. In my heart, you're a good person. Besides, being kind to the enemy is being cruel to yourself. You were so manly when you shot him. Thank you. Chapter 1152. Late at night, in a high-class villa area in the imperial capital, Ning Xuelua paced back and forth in the living room, her face full of anger. I waited all night for your call, and now you're telling me that there was an accident. You keep saying that it's foolproof and that you don't need me to teach you how to do things, but you can't even handle a girl like Zhuang Ku'er and that good-for-nothing Zhuang Rongguang. Is this how you do things? Little girl, you were the one who said that Zhuang Ku'er wouldn't dare to tell the Zhuang family because of Zhuang Rongguang, but now all my people are dead. It's obviously the Zhuang family. I've lost 3 people on my side because of your trivial matter, and you still dare to yell at me? The voice on the other end of the phone was obviously very angry. No matter what, this is all because of your incompetence. You must think of a way to solve this problem. It was already risky for you to touch the Zhuang family, but now you've alerted them. Do you want me to get involved because of this? This matter ends here. The voice on the other end of the phone hung up. You. Hello? Ning Xuelua threw the phone hard, her face full of anger. The next morning, Outside the house, the sun was shining brightly, birds were singing, and flowers were fragrant. Pink petals were blowing from the hillside not far away, along with the spring breeze, and the air was filled with a faint fragrance. Zhuang Rongwang, who used to laze in bed and be late for class every day, actually woke up early in the morning. Then, he quietly drove to a famous breakfast snack shop in the capital far away and went to buy breakfast for his two sisters at home. Not long after Zhuang Rongwang left, a black Maybach drove slowly and stopped in front of the retro and quiet building. Lu Tingxiao pushed the door open and got out of the car, then went to the back seat and carried his son out. As soon as he got out of the car, Xiao Baozi twisted his body to the ground and quickly ran to the door. After running to the door, the little fellow was stunned. Because he was not tall enough, he could not press the password lock. Therefore, the little fellow could only bear the humiliation and turned around, opening his short arms, indicating that he wanted his father to carry him. Lu Tingxiao looked at his son, anxiously stretching out his short arms to hug him. He stood there with his arms crossed, showing no intention of hugging him. His attitude was clear: call him daddy. Little Baozi naturally knew what Papa meant. He puffed his cheeks, and his big eyes were filled with anger and accusation. Finally, the little fellow took out a small black remote control from somewhere. After fiddling with it for a while, the door opened from the inside with a click. Welcome home, cute and adorable mommy's favorite little master. The person who opened the door was the robot man too. Little Bun touched the steamed bun as a reward, then looked at her papa proudly. Lu Tingxiao lowered his eyes and chuckled. His expression was helpless and doting. His son being too smart was also a headache, but who could he blame for inheriting it? After the door opened, Little Bun immediately ran in. Lu Tingxiao watched as his son tiptoed and gently opened the door to his mother's bedroom. Strangely, this time, he didn't go in immediately like he usually did. Instead, he squatted at the door and looked a little hesitant. What's wrong? Lu Tingxiao subconsciously walked in the direction of the bedroom. As soon as he approached, he saw that there were 2 bumps on Ningxi's bed. Clearly, there were 2 people lying there. Chapter 1153. Ningxi was sleeping soundly, and beside her was Zhuang Ku'er, who was wearing Ningxi's pajamas and intimately leaning into Ningxi's embrace. Lu Tingxiao's face instantly darkened. She had gone on a business trip for so long and came back in the middle of the night. Not to see him, but to sleep with another woman for the whole night? Zhuang Ku'er didn't know if it was because she felt this strong resentment, but she opened her eyes in a daze. When she saw Lu Tingxiao at the door, she was startled. At the same time, Ningxi also woke up. The moment she saw Lu Tingxiao, her expression changed. She turned over and sat up. She immediately said, "Fuck. Wifey, let me explain." Lu Tingxiao. As soon as Ningxi said this, she felt that something was wrong. Fuck. She was in a daze. It was all Zhuang Rongguang's fault. Last night, she kept saying man and man, making her think that she was really a man. Ningxi coughed lightly and scratched her head. She hurriedly switched back to her normal state. Lord Boss, why are you here? Aya, my steamed bun is here too. Go wait outside first. Mama will be up soon. Little Bun nodded obediently and then obediently went to the living room. Lu Tingxiao pinched his eyebrows. You guys change first. Then he gently closed the door. Ningxi was looking for clothes for herself and Zhuang Ku'er to change into. When she turned her head, she saw Zhuang Ku'er sitting on the bed with an unhappy expression. She immediately asked anxiously, Ku'er, what's wrong? Zhuang Ku'er looked up at Ningxi and mumbled, I don't know why, but I feel that Lu Tingxiao seems to hate me. The corner of Ningxi's mouth twitched. Why do you care about him? It's fine as long as I like you. And Zhuang Ku'er nodded. Only then did she feel a little happier. Ningxi's words were domineering, but her little heart was already thumping. It was obvious that the great Demon King's epic vinegar jar had been overturned again. Ningxi put on her clothes and walked to the living room. Little Bun immediately ran over, looking as if a day apart felt like 3 years. Ning Shi happily picked up little steamed bun and rubbed her face against his soft little face. Oh woo, steamed bun, I missed you so much. Mama, give me a kiss. Out of the corner of her eye, Ning Shi saw Lu Tingxiao sitting on the sofa in his elegant and cold attire. After coaxing little bun, she immediately leaned over and kissed the corner of the man's lips. She whispered in the man's ear in a voice that little bun couldn't hear. Of course. I miss my sweetheart even more. Lu Tingxiao's face darkened, but he was still appeased by the girl's sweet words. However, he did not forget the most important question. A suspicious look appeared on his face. If I remember correctly, it was already midnight when you arrived at the capital last night. In other words, it was unreasonable for Zhuang Kuder to appear at her place at this time. As he spoke, Lu Tingxiao's gaze fell on the sofa opposite him. It was obvious that someone had slept there. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Could it be that brat Zhuang Rongguang? Ning Shi immediately went to open the door. It was indeed Zhuang Rongguang standing outside. Sister Shi, I've bought breakfast for you. Ning Shi scratched her head, then explained to Lu Tingxiao in the tone of a primary school student reporting homework to the teacher. Actually, it's because Zhuang Rongguang got into trouble again and angered Chief Zhuang. So Kuer brought him here overnight to temporarily avoid trouble. Chapter 1154. Hearing this, Zhuang Rongguang immediately looked at Lu Tingxiao and said, Sorry, brother-in-law Shi. I'm sorry to bother you. Hearing Zhuang Rongguang call him brother-in-law Shi, Lu Tingxiao's expression softened. Seeing that the crisis was over, Ning Shi finally breathed a sigh of relief and secretly gave Zhuang Rongguang a well-done look. Zhuang Rongguang looked at Ning Shi with an indescribable expression. Ever since they met, every time he saw Ning Shi, she would be arrogant as if she was the best in the world. This was the first time he saw her so afraid of someone. Well, was this the legendary henpecked? Zhuang Rongguang carried a dozen big and small bags in his hands. The breakfast he bought was very sumptuous, enough for the 5 of them to eat. Sister, have some buns. These are your favorite crab buns from Yixing restaurant. I couldn't get them even if I waited in line. The boss cut the line because he knew me. Zhuang Rongguang handed a delicate small box to Zhuang Kuer. Then, he went up to Ning Shi and said, Sister Shi, I don't know what you like to eat, so I bought a little bit of everything. You can eat whatever you like. I waited in line to buy them from a famous old restaurant in the capital. Zhuang Rongguang was good at eating, drinking, and playing. The breakfast he bought was indeed a famous snack in the capital, and he had lined up very early. Obviously, he had put a lot of effort into it. Thanks. Ning Shi found a shrimp bun for little bun, then handed a fruit jianbing to the devil and said softly, Mr. Boss, I'm sure you haven't eaten this before. Try it. It's delicious. After that, he eagerly fed it to the Demon King's mouth. Looking at the girl's attentive look, Lu Tingxiao was obviously satisfied. He lowered his head and took a bite of the girl's hand. How is it? Is it delicious? Ning Shi asked. Brother-in-law Shi, it's cheap, but I bought the best fruit jianbing in the capital. Not bad. He didn't care where he bought it. It was purely because his wife fed him. During breakfast, Zhuang Rongguang's gaze fell on Lu Tingxiao. He looked at Lu Tingxiao with even more reverence than when he looked at Ning Shi. He had heard of Lu Tingxiao before. When he heard that his family had the intention of marrying into the Lu family, he was very disdainful. He thought that Lu Tingxiao was just an ordinary businessman who made a lot of money. But now, he had completely changed his view. How could a man who could handle Sister Shi and make her behave like a woman in front of him be an ordinary person? I'm getting more and more curious. How did he deal with Sister Shi? After breakfast, the siblings also knew that Ning Shi had just returned from a business trip for a long time, so they sensibly proposed to leave without disturbing the family of 3. Before leaving, Zhuang Rongguang sneaked up to Lu Tingxiao while Ning Shi was talking to Zhuang Kuer. He asked the question that he had been thinking about during the meal. Well, brother Shi, can I ask you a question? Ask. Ahem, I'm just curious. You. How did you deal with Sister Shi? Zhuang Rongguang asked humbly. Hearing this, Lu Tingxiao glanced at the boy out of the corner of his eye and then pondered. Zhuang Rongguang held his breath and waited for his answer. After a while, Lu Tingxiao finally said, Beauty, Zhuang Rongguang, the author's Weibo is doing a lucky draw. Those who are interested can go and have a try my Sina Weibo ID, the charming Weibo. Chapter 1155. Zhuang Mansion. After Zhuang Ku-er and Zhuang Rongguang reached home, Zhuang Rongguang spent a lot of effort to dig out his moldy school bag from his messy room. The textbooks in the bag were almost all brand new. There was also a brand new English dictionary and learning machine. All the stationery was very complete. Zhuang Ku-er had personally prepared it for him. Zhuang Rongguang patted the dust off his school bag and then rummaged through the messy wardrobe for a set of high school uniform that he had never worn before. There was a shiny school badge on the uniform, which was engraved with the words Imperial Capital Hongwen High School. After finding the school uniform and bag, Zhuang Rongguang found a hairdresser and went to the bathroom. He changed his most treasured and cool hairstyle into an old-fashioned crew cut that he hated the most. Zhuang Rongguang used a towel to wipe the hair on his face and neck. He stared at himself in the mirror for a long time until tears welled up in his eyes uncontrollably. The young man's fingers were on the washstand. He took a deep breath and forced back his tears. He then went back to his bedroom, put on his school uniform, and carried his school bag. Zhuang Rongguang closed the door and left his bedroom. When he passed by Zhuang Ku-er's room, Zhuang Rongguang stopped in his tracks. He looked at the delicate figure in the room who had always protected him. He called out softly, Sis. Zhuang Ku-er was folding clothes in the room. When she heard the voice, she subconsciously looked towards the door. The next second, when she saw the young man at the door, she was stunned. You, Rongguang. The young man was tall and straight. He was wearing a damp blue school uniform and had a school bag on his back. His neat short hair made him look very spirited, especially the light in the young man's eyes, which were sparkling like the rising sun. This is her brother? Although he was still the same person, he looked like a completely different person. She had never seen him like this before. For a moment, Zhuang Ku-er almost couldn't recognize him. She stood there in a daze for a long time. Zhuang Rongguang looked at his sister in front of him and greeted her, Sis, I'm going to school. Hearing her brother's words, Zhuang Ku-er snapped out of her daze and said reflexively, Oh, go ahead. It's still early. Be careful. Okay, got it. Zhuang Rongguang nodded and looked at Zhuang Ku-er. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he said nothing and left without looking back. Sister, she said that a man should act, not talk. Zhuang Ku-er stood there in a daze for a long time, then hurriedly ran to the balcony. Standing on the balcony, she stared blankly at Zhuang Rongguang's back as he left with his backpack. Her eyes were filled with bitterness. That 18-year-old boy seemed to have grown up overnight. Capital Hongwen High School. Zhuang Rongguang was actually quite good-looking. It was just that he was always dressed like a punk. He would cause trouble all day long and interact with bad people outside the school. His classmates would shake their heads and avoid him whenever they saw him. It was rush hour. Zhuang Rongguang was dressed in his school uniform and had short hair. He carried his school bag on one shoulder and had one hand in his pocket as he walked along the tree-lined road in front of the school. He attracted a lot of attention along the way, especially from the female students. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and chattered away, Wow, who is that guy? So handsome. I don't know her. I've never seen him before. I didn't know there was such a handsome guy in our school. Why do I think he looks a bit like Zhuang Rongguang? Zhuang Rongguang? That punk. Are you fucking kidding me? More and more people were talking. Finally, one of the girls said impatiently, Stupid. Just call him and you'll know if he's the one. With that, she made a trumpet shape with her hands and shouted at the back of the boy in front of her, Hey, Zhuang Rongguang. Zhuang Rongguang. When Zhuang Rongguang heard someone calling him, He subconsciously stopped in his tracks and turned around. What's the matter? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.